Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. One Piece, start as a mythical beast, practice to become stronger. Chapter 21, Chat After Training. In the following month, Jinan became a recluse. Except for a few people in the entire base saw him. During this month, he spent all his time practicing. The simulated space-time he had accumulated had long been used up. Fortunately, Garp stayed on the island to slack off, otherwise he would have taken many detours in practicing his domineering aura. In addition, he discovered that physique and domineering actually promote each other. With his physique, it is easier for him to cultivate armed color domineering than ordinary people. The stronger the physique, the better the body's adaptability to haki, and with Garp's guidance, the rate of improvement is rapid. In less than a month, Jinan's armed haki had grown several times stronger than at the beginning, and the area that could be covered by the haki had also increased a lot. With my current strength, I can hold out for a few more moves against Garp. Unfortunately, his observation haki did not increase much, which may be related to his mental strength. However, he had no idea how to train his mental strength, so he could only stay at 59 points. But overall, the gains this month were quite significant. In the training ground behind the base, Jinan was lying on the ground with his eyes slightly narrowed. His clothes were soaked with sweat, and it was obvious that he had just been through intense exercise. Although his eyes were closed, he was not resting. Instead, he was mobilizing his mental energy to perceive the surrounding environment. After a month of exploration, he discovered that how far his mental power could extend was determined by how far his observation haki could detect, and the two were closely related. From the frown on Jinan's face, it can be seen that his current mental strength is obviously not able to meet his needs. Jinan opened his eyes and sighed softly. This observation haki can only cover an island. It's too difficult to improve it. He still remembered that Garp had told him some time ago that the cultivation of haki was a long process, and when haki was cultivated to a certain level, other special abilities would evolve. For example, observation haki. It is said that if you practice it to a certain level, you can sense what will happen in the future, but he is completely confused about these things. Cap, who was sitting on a recliner nearby, was no longer surprised by Jinan's exercise. God knows how surprised he was when he saw Jinan exercising for the first time. He almost called him a pervert. When this kid was training, he simply didn't consider himself a human being and did whatever was dangerous possible. It was the first time he saw someone being so cruel to him. Have you finished your exercise? Come over and take a rest. Cap patted the rocking chair next to him. He found that there were quite a lot of good things in the South China Sea. The rocking chair under him was probably the thing that suited his taste the most. It was so comfortable to lie on it and rock gently. I've already told you that you should exercise in moderation. Excessive exercise is harmful to your body. Cap sipped the tea in his hand and persuaded Jinan very patiently. He had high expectations for Jinan. The Navy is not short of combat power now. So he feels that Jinan does not need to be so eager to improve its strength. After Rock's death, the pirate group fell apart, and all the powerful people on the ship left the group and sought their own way out. Currently, the Navy is the strongest force in the world, and the pirates are fighting each other, fighting to the death for the illusory pirate king. It is just like the saying, when together they are a ball of fire, when apart they are a sky full of stars. If Jinan knew what Garp was thinking, he would definitely complain that there were too many people in the Navy who had such thoughts, which was why the world was so chaotic. Of course, maintaining chaos in this world is what the world government wants to see, and they intentionally maintain the balance of the world. The people below were fighting each other, and the nobles who were high above could sit back and enjoy their lives without worries, while the common people had to pay astronomical amounts of heavenly gold for their entertainment just for that temporary peace. Vice Admiral Garp, your strength is no longer enough to withstand any threat in this world. You can certainly choose a comfortable lifestyle. And I may face the threat of death at any time. If I don't work hard, will you support me when the time comes? Jinan gave Garp a helpless smile. He had his own understanding of the world, and he believed that the world would only become more and more chaotic in the future. Only when his life is not threatened, like Garp, can he happily fish. Forget it, you can figure it out yourself. Garp seemed not to have heard Jinan's next sentence. He scratched his ears. He still needed to rely on the snacks from the Warring States period to survive. There was no way to feed a living person. However, Jinan's words gave Garp some inspiration. My son is about the same age as you, but he seems like a young fool. When Jinan heard Garp talking about his own children, his eyes flickered. Influenced by his father, Monkey D. Dragon has longed to become a righteous navy officer since he was a child. Currently, he is still a passionate young man with deep expectations for justice. That kid has been quiet since he was young. He can hardly find many friends of his own age. I'm really worried. After saying this, he sighed in a pretentious manner, like a parent who was working hard for his child. Jinan curled his lips slightly. What annoyed him the most since he was a child was people showing off their children. Now that I know your son is amazing, can you please skip this topic? As far as he knew, Monkey D. Dragon was about 20 years old now, 2 years younger than him, but he was already a colonel in the headquarters of the Navy. Moreover, this colonel was not at all fake, he had earned his title by killing people with his own sword and gun. So I want my kid to learn something from you. After Karp finished speaking, Jinan opened his mouth so wide that an egg could fit in it. What was going on? Let him, a man who had just become a colonel, be the boss of a big boss who was about to be promoted to brigadier general. Either Karp hasn't woken up yet, or he's hallucinating from overexercise. Karp waited for a while but still didn't hear Jinan's answer. He felt a little strange. Could it be that this kid didn't want to take over that brat from his family? I don't think I have anything to teach him. Jinan answered uncertainly. Don't worry about these. Whether he can learn anything or not is something that my kid should think about. You just need to discipline him well. Karp didn't care. A drop of cold sweat ran down Jinan's forehead. He was indeed a ruthless man who gave his grandson to be raised by bandits. He could not refute what the bandit said. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as your consent. Karp laughed and made the decision immediately, not giving Jinan a chance to refuse. This kid is really hard to fool. That guy Long has caused him a lot of trouble recently. Taking this opportunity to let Long come to the South China Sea for a while is a good choice. Lieutenant General Garp. Jinan sensed that something was wrong. Ah, this recliner is so comfortable. I'll bring one back for that guy Zhangguo when I go back. After drinking his tea, Cap swiftly got up from the recliner, put his hands behind his back, and left Jinan shaking his head. This is really an old rogue. Looking at the cup without a drop of tea left, Jinan suddenly felt that he was so pure and kind. Chapter 22 Preparing to return to the Kingdom of Salbi. Report to the Colonel, Vice Admiral Garp has already left. Hua Shaoshan has now become a member of Jinan's direct combat force, and is currently temporarily serving as the Colonel's assistant, responsible for delivering and summarizing various messages. No. Jinan didn't even raise his head, as he was carefully dealing with the documents on the desk. His job as an official was like being in prison, he was either dealing with documents or on his way to deal with documents. What? Is there anything else? Seeing that Hua Shaoshan seemed to have something to say, Jinan asked straight to the point. There are no important things, but when Vice Admiral Garp left, he took hundreds of millions of things with him on his return journey. Hua Shaoshan was sweating. It doesn't matter. It's a rare occasion for Garp to come over, so I asked him to go to the warehouse and choose some to take away. Jinan didn't care. After all, Garp was a lieutenant general and had no shortage of good things. He probably wouldn't take much. He was very generous to his own people. It was just some personal belongings. But the inventory in the Navy warehouse has almost all been moved away by Vice Admiral Garp. Afraid that Jinan would not believe it, he continued, many people on the island saw it. Vice Admiral Garp's doghead ship was almost full. In fact, there were not many things in the warehouse of this base. They were all squandered by the former colonel. What was left were just scrap metal and had no value at all. The things that Cap moved away were all sent by Jinan through Dakshang after Jinan called Bug. They included all the products that Jinan had made over the years, which were originally intended to be used to develop the economy of the island. What? The people of Jinan were stunned. The warehouse on the island stores Jinan's items used to replace old items in the base, new office supplies, and items used to do business with the wealthy people on the island. The most important thing is that there is a lot of food stored inside. Everything else is fine, except that 10 items of each are missing, but the food has almost been moved away. Hua Shaoshan was full of confusion. He could understand moving away the new tables and chairs, as they were indeed useful, but why did they move the food away as well? These sailors need to eat, and when the warehouse is emptied, they can only go to the town to eat. Jinan covered his face. Oh my god, this old deng is really rude. It seems that the meals Jinan cooked during this period made him salivate over them. These foods were the seeds Jinan exchanged from the system store and tried to cultivate in this world himself. The quantity was still very small and they could not be promoted on a large scale. Forget it, I'll ask someone to send another batch over later. It's just a warehouse. For Jinan, it's just a matter of sprinkling some water. But it would be a bit troublesome for Dakshin. With so many things, it would be quite troublesome for him to take pictures. Hearing that the food problem had been solved, Hua Shaishan was ecstatic. Not only did Cap like the food, but the soldiers also liked it. The entire base seems to have become a foodie group, and all they think about when they're at work is what the dishes will be in the cafeteria after get off work. Oh, by the way, Fire Mountain, is my ship back to the kingdom of Salbei ready? Under his governance during this period, the island has completely restored order and is more lively than ever before. There is no need for him to stay in this place any longer. Hua Shaishan replied, Colonel, your ship to leave the island is ready and can depart at any time. Will you come with me then? What Jinan values is this talent. Although Hua Shaishan is still very weak now, what Jinan values is his character. Those who will stand up when people are suffering are qualified to join his team. Hearing Jinan's words, Hua Shaishan's face lit up immediately, I do. Jinan was silent for a while, then nodded slightly, no need to be so excited, pack your things, I will take you away when the time comes. Okay, I'll get ready right away. Hua Shaishan was so excited that he could hardly suppress it, and after saying this, he ran away like a gust of wind. Young people nowadays are so impetuous. Jinan laughed. Apparently, he has forgotten the fact that he is only 22 years old. Kingdom of Solbei. Brother Big Bear, why hasn't my brother come back yet? Shanks looked uneasy, afraid that Jinan might be in danger. When he left, he said he would be back soon, but it's been over a month. As he said this he sniffed a little aggrievedly. He had never been away from Jinan for such a long time before. Even though he had Big Bear and Ginny with him, he still felt uncomfortable. Little Shanks, don't worry, your brother is very strong, and you two have been talking on the phone all the time. Ginny sighed and comforted softly. But my brother hasn't spoken to me for 2 hours. Shanks' voice weakened. Big Bear and Ginny looked at each other with a bitter smile in their eyes. They were both helpless against Shanks, who had a brother complex. It was hard for them to imagine that Shanks, who behaved like a little adult in front of outsiders, was like a completely different person when it came to matters involving his brother. Even the two of them who were very close to Shanks were of little use in comforting him. Your brother is busy today, and he asked me to deliver some things to him. Big Bear touched Shanks' head, but he said he will be back soon. We'll go to the port with you and wait for him then. Shanks was a little skeptical, because Big Bear said the same thing half a month ago, and then Big Bear touched his nose awkwardly. When he saw the look in Shanks' eyes, he also remembered those things, but he really didn't know how to comfort people. And he was still a child himself. Ginny looked at the blushing Big Bear and thought he was cute. Shanks, what Big Bear said is true. When Jinan called the bug, I heard it, too. Don't worry, he will be back soon. The other side. On the ship bound for Marineford. Vice Admiral Garp, isn't it a bad idea for us to do this? Garp's adjutant looked at the food piled up all over the ship, and felt a little uneasy about the remaining conscience in Jinan's heart. Why, you don't like eating these things? Cap didn't care and picked up a fruit and started eating. The adjutant hesitated for a moment, but ultimately succumbed to the delicious food. I think there is a reason for what Vice Admiral Garp did. Don't eat it alone, share some with us. Seeing Garp eating with such relish, the sailors were so embarrassed that tears were about to flow from their mouths. Garp laughed, the food is all there, do you still want me to feed you? Long live Vice Admiral Garp! There were bursts of laughter floating on the sea, but the sea fish were trembling with fear and dared not show their heads at all. Chapter 23 A Family of Four Meets. Shanks, I haven't seen you for such a long time, do you miss me? Jinan smiled and scratched Shanks' little nose, then put Shanks on his neck. How could it be possible, I didn't miss you. Shanks blushed and turned his head to the side. But his inner joy was already written all over his face. So that's how it is. Brother is so sad. Jinan saw all of Shanks' expressions and pretended to be sad. Hearing Jinan's tone drop, Shanks panicked, I still have something in mind. Ginny and Big Bear looked at this pair of funny guys and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. One was a proud and arrogant brother Khan, while the other was a mischievous brother Khan. They really were not from the same family. Thank you for taking care of Shanks during this time. Jinan felt a little embarrassed. He thought he would only be out for an afternoon, but he didn't expect that he would not come back until now. Ginny's face was stern, and she said calmly, "What you said, how dare we not do what the colonel said? Just please take good care of the child in the future and don't let the child worry about you anymore." Hearing that Ginny's tone was a little strange, Big Bear hurriedly explained, "She didn't mean that. Don't be angry with Ginny." Jinan slapped Big Bear on the head and laughed, "Big Bear, Ginny will definitely keep a close eye on you from now on. Don't worry about my strength. If you can't beat me, you can run away from me." The three of them have lived together for so many years. They are not a family, but they are better than a family. What Ginny said just now was an insult to her friend, who was so busy with work that he didn't consider his family's feelings. The little girl obviously had a lot to say, but she was a little shy. Shanks tilted his head, with a look of delight on his face, "Big Bear, are you so concerned that you're confused?" He understood what Ginny and Jinan said. It seemed that something was going on between Big Bear and Ginny. Ginny blushed, "What are you talking about? I will ignore you if you continue talking." In the past few years, she and Dakshang have long regarded Jinan as their brother, and the relationship between them is self-evident. As Jinan and Shanks joked around, her uneasiness faded away. She was as worried about Jinan's safety as Dakshang was, but she was too embarrassed to say it in front of the child. Ah! Dakshang was a little confused. He was obviously familiar with the words in these sentences, but when they were put together, he had trouble understanding them. "Let's go home together. I'll cook a big meal for you tonight," Jinan said heroically. "Colonel Jinan, where should I go?" Hua Shaishan, who followed behind Jinan, felt reluctant to disturb the happy moment of the colonel's family, but he had nowhere to go if he didn't say anything. The mountain is on fire, I almost forgot about you." Jinan slapped his head, and Shanks on his shoulder also shook, "Did you see the tallest building on the island?" Hua Shaishan nodded honestly, "I see." Before getting off the boat, he carefully observed the island where he would work and live in the future. The tallest building was so magnificent, how could he not see it? "Now that you've seen it, just go there and report. I've already said hello to Kuzan." After saying that, he waved to Hua Shaishan and followed Dakshang and the others towards their residence. "Have I been abandoned?" Hua Shaishan murmured to himself. The warship that brought them to the kingdom of Salbi has returned, leaving him alone standing disheveled in the sea breeze. "Excuse me, are you burning the mountain?" A somewhat excited voice was so pleasant in the sea breeze. "Yes, I am." Hua Shaishan looked at the soldier walking towards him and was so excited that he couldn't express it in words. There was actually someone here who knew him. He was no longer a lonely traveler. The man took a step forward with excitement on his face and grabbed Hua Shaishan's hand tightly, as if he had met a long-lost brother. "It's better to meet in person than to hear about someone. I'm Kuzan, welcome to the Salbi Kingdom branch. Colonel Jinan should have told you about my situation." Hua Shaishan was a little uncomfortable with Kuzan's enthusiasm and nodded subconsciously. Kuzan looked at the burning mountain in front of him and thought to himself, "Finally a savior has arrived. He has been working overtime for a month and is about to die of sudden death. The colonel trusts the abilities of the people recommended by him and they can definitely start working directly at the branch and share the pressure for him." Hua Shaishan felt a little overwhelmed. He silently withdrew his hand and wiped it behind his back without leaving a trace. "I don't think he's a pervert. His sexual orientation is very normal. However, this person was the one nominated by the colonel, and he seemed unable to refuse." The more Hua Shaishan thought about it, the more bleak his future seemed. Is the only way to do this is to follow the other party? Hua Shaishan was a little entangled, but in the end he chose to put his hand back. "Mom, I'm not clean anymore." Kuzan noticed Hua Shaishan's movements and thought he had met a soulmate who understood what he meant, so he quickly grabbed his hand and ran away. He finally had a helper. "Ginny, let me tell you, Big Bear is a little slow in thinking and has a bit of a stubborn personality. You have to speak directly to others, otherwise that guy." The dog shook his head when he saw this. On the way back, Jinan spoke earnestly. He could see what Ginny was thinking, but he also knew Big Bear's character. "Jinan, what are you talking about?" Ginny's face turned red, but she still chose to play dumb. "Hey!" Big Bear was always afraid that his identity would affect other people, so he didn't dare to reveal his inner thoughts or get too close to them, thus developing a taciturn personality. Jinan said that he was worried sick, but they seemed afraid to reveal their feelings. Let it be. What? Shanks, who was having fun, seemed to be triggered by the keywords and ran to Jinan in a flash. Go play somewhere else, kid. Jinan patted Shanks on the head and pushed him aside. Shanks' expression turned serious and he protested loudly, I'm not a child anymore. Okay, got it. I'll give you BC calcium milk when we get home. Now go play. Jinan nodded perfunctorily. He really couldn't understand what the little brat meant by pretending to be an adult. Shanks, who ran out, suddenly reacted and gritted his teeth, aren't you still treating me like a child? One day, I will let you know how powerful I am, But BC calcium milk is really delicious. Ginny pouted beside us and said, she's here to teach us a lesson. She couldn't even guess what Shanks was thinking. All Shanks wanted was to be able to help Jinan when he became an adult. Ginny looked at Jinan's back. His not-so-strong body provided them with a full sense of security, allowing them to grow up without worries. Sometimes, you can rely on us a little more, silly brother. Chapter 24 King Beckley. The Palace of the Kingdom of Sowerby. In front of the palace gate, a group of guards lined up in an extraordinary manner. A man in official clothes came hurriedly and knelt down directly in front of the palace gate. Your Majesty, I have something to report. At the same time, an old and hoarse voice was heard from inside the palace. Ahem, just come in. When the man heard the order, he stood up and walked into the palace under the admiring eyes of the guards. But as he got closer to the king, his waist bent more and more, until he saw the king and knelt directly in front of the desk. King Beckley of the Kingdom of Sowerby looked a little old. He leaned on a chair, swaying gently up and down. The official knelt and bowed his head to the ground. Reporting to the king, Jinan has returned to the Kingdom of Sowerby. According to intelligence, he has been fighting at sea in the past month, defeating several pirate groups, and has had close exchanges with the Navy hero. Ugh! Beckley sighed heavily, and then a trace of bitterness appeared on his face. He is still so powerful. If he can calm down, he will not be Jinan anymore. It has been more than 3 years since I first met him. Do you know how I have been through these 3 years? Everyone in the kingdom thought that he and I had a good relationship. It was because of him that the kingdom was so safe. What a joke! I would be better off without him. How can a navy be above a country's kingship? The official knelt on the ground, his eyes trembling violently, but he still said nothing. Just as the man was sweating profusely, Beckley suddenly asked, Robert, do you think I'm living a miserable life? Robert's body trembled for a moment, and he adjusted his facial expression. In the Kingdom of Sowerby, you are the undisputed number one. Jinan is not even worthy of carrying your shoes. No. He is more beloved by the people than the king, and he has extraordinary appeal. After saying this, Beckley suddenly started coughing violently. After the coughing stopped, he said with a self-deprecating tone, I have to say, that guy has indeed done a lot for this country. He even saved my life. I also know that he has no feelings for this country. Robert wanted to die at this moment. Why did he rush to get involved in this mess? He tried to curl up into a ball, trying to reduce his presence. Beckley continued to talk to himself, I treated him well, and what he did really chilled me to the bone. Reputation is something that is so difficult to obtain, but he obtained it so easily. He cares about the common people. Don't I have any too? Beckley glanced indifferently at Robert who was curled up in a ball, and a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. It's because I raised a bunch of losers like you that I can't even defend against some scumbag pirates. After saying this, Beckley's tone became colder, as if he had turned into a beast ready to devour its prey. Send the Minister of Defense to see me immediately. Robert raised his head with a trembling body, now. Yes, now, right now, go and get them. Yes, King, I will do it now. Robert stood up, turned around and walked out. Walking out the door, he tried to calm down and wiped the sweat from his forehead. The clothes on his body seemed to have been fished out of the water. He felt like he had saved his life. He left in a hurry amid the puzzled looks of the palace guards. Brother, the atmosphere in the kingdom seems to have changed a bit during the month you were away. After finishing their meal, the 4 of them lay neatly on the sofa, digesting the food in their stomachs while the video telephone bug played the latest hot information. Ginny nodded in agreement when she heard this. The atmosphere had indeed changed during this period of time, and the king had been making some small moves. It's just that most people can't really feel it, otherwise the country would have become chaotic long ago. Big Bear ate a little too much and just wanted to lie down and be a quiet handsome man. He has never been interested in these things. In his subconscious, as long as Ginny and Jinan were there, he only needed to listen to them, and their decisions were always correct. Is that so? I'll go check it out tomorrow. Jinan didn't care. He was very familiar with the king of this country. As soon as the king stuck out his butt, he knew what to do. I guess it's another case of much ado about nothing, a messy operation, and then messing around, and now he has to wait for the navy to clean up his mess. Jinan not only protects the security of this country, but also contributes a lot of tax revenue every year. However, the old man is still not satisfied. Should we give him some unforgettable memories? These people have been living in comfort for too long and have forgotten what it feels like when their lives are threatened. This task can be handed over to Hua Shaishan, which will allow him to get familiar with the country. The tallest building on the island is still brightly lit, and Hua Shaishan is still working overtime. Thank you so much. Big Bear, are you satisfied with your life as a pastor? Jinan looked at the dead Big Bear. Burp. As soon as he opened his mouth, Big Bear couldn't help but burp, and suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Being a pastor has always been my dream. I am very satisfied with my current situation. His father was originally a pastor and he had a happy life, but unfortunately both of his parents who had always cared for him passed away. I'm glad you think so. Jinan changed the subject, but you have to remember to protect yourself. Some people are not worth your efforts. After experiencing what happened in the Valley of Gods, I have understood what you said. Big Bear looked at the people in the room with gentle eyes. I will protect everything I hold dear. Jinan felt relieved that the Big Bear who was so gentle to everyone had changed a lot. He had grown into a man who made people feel at ease. Bear, that's a great point. Ginny gave him a thumbs up. Jinan became serious. In this world, if you want to protect others, you must have strong strength. You three should follow me and train from now on, and strive to live a wonderful life in this world. Shanks cheered, great! I can finally train with my brother. I will protect you all then. Ginny's eyes softened, then we will wait for you, little adult Shanks. Sister Ginny, I've told you, don't touch my head all the time, or you won't grow taller. Although Shanks said that he didn't allow her to touch him, he didn't let go of Ginny's hand, and the corners of his mouth even curled up. Enjoying the rare warmth in the pirate world, Jinan couldn't help but sigh that meeting these people in the Valley of Gods was one of the few lucky things he had encountered since coming to this world. Chapter 25 Meeting the King. In the morning, it was still dark. Big Bear, Ginny, and Shanks showed up at the training ground on the island on time. Jinan looked at the three of them with amusement. Although they hadn't had breakfast yet and looked a little listless after just waking up, they had the attitude towards training. Shanks, in particular, seemed not to be used to getting up early. He felt like a frost-bitten eggplant, wilted. Jinan got up earlier than the other three. He ran around the island a few times and prepared breakfast before coming to the training ground. He knew that none of the three had the habit of eating breakfast, but they would definitely be very hungry after exercising, so he still prepared a portion for each of them. When the three saw Jinan coming, they were all excited. They all had reasons to become stronger. Before, Jinan didn't teach them, and they wanted to learn secretly. Now they had the opportunity to learn openly, and they were so excited. A smile appeared in Jinan's eyes. He said no more and walked straight up to the three people. You've all heard of the 6 styles in the Navy, right? The three of them nodded in unison. The 6 styles were a technique spread within the Navy that allowed ordinary people to practice and fight against ordinary people with special abilities. But learning these moves requires a lot of talent. Some people can learn them after being taught once, while others need a long time of practice. Brother, are you going to teach us the 6 styles? Shanks asked. Jinan nodded first, then shook his head. I will teach you the 6 styles later. Now your body cannot adapt to the conditions of practicing the 6 styles. Do you know the daily training tasks of the Marine Headquarters soldiers? Ginny and the others looked at each other and then slowly shook their heads. 2000 push UPS, 100 repetitions of rope climbing, laps of long-distance running, and finally practical training. Jinan said the most terrifying words in the most calm tone. After hearing about these training programs, even the strongest bear swallowed unconsciously. I know your bodies can't sustain these exercises, so every morning you should do some training that suits your body conditions. I'll put your breakfast here. Eat it after training. What about you, brother? Shanks was curious. Their training tasks were arranged. What was Jinan going to do? Jinan grinned. These exercises are of no use to me, I can just watch you train. Don't worry about me, just pretend I'm not here. Don't you have to go to work? Jinny asked the question that the three of them were most concerned about. Jinan said confidently, I am the boss of the entire South China Sea, who can arrange for me to work? Jinny and the other two were speechless for a moment. You are a high-ranking official, so you are amazing. Okay, start training, I'll be there to cheer you on. Shanks found that the content of these exercises was not what he had imagined. He thought Jinan would give each of them a wooden sword and teach them step by step. He had wanted to be a swordsman since he was a child and looked forward to being able to hold a sword and move like the wind in the future. Unexpectedly, reality slapped him in the face. The training content was so boring and needed to be repeated over and over again. Keep breathing and keep the rhythm steady. Jinan was standing beside them and would remind them at the right time. He was still very strict during training, and he firmly believed that the little sweat shed during training would turn into blood shed in battle. After mastering the breathing rhythm, the three felt that the pressure seemed to be relieved and the training gradually got into the state. Just when Jinan was enjoying the show. Colonel Jinan, the king invites you to come with us, please. The soldier in heavy armor said in a cold voice. How come the quality of you royal guards is getting worse and worse? Jinan shook his head. You don't even show your face. Is this how you invite people? The armored man continued to ask, Colonel Jinan, do you mean to say that you don't plan to go with me? I didn't say that. Don't blame me. I have nothing to do right now, so I'll go with you. Jinan patted his armor with a smile, looking quite impressive. He had been to the palace several times, each time at the invitation of the old king. Although with his status and position, entering the palace was as easy as eating and drinking, he was not so idle that he would go there whenever he had time. Without waiting for the armored man to take action, Jinan walked towards the palace first. Have you not eaten? Why are you walking so slowly? Jinan complained about the armored man following behind him. He had deliberately slowed down his pace, but he was still walking so slowly. Armored man, do you think I don't want to walk fast? This armor is really heavy. He even had difficulty breathing and really didn't want to pay attention to Jin An. After a while, Jinan stood at the entrance of the palace. Your Majesty, we have arrived in Jinan. Bikola dozed with his eyes slightly closed, and slowly opened them after hearing the report. Let him in. Under the escort of the guards, Jinan walked into the palace. Jinan had expected to be summoned by the king. He thought the king would wait for a few more days, but he didn't expect him to be so anxious. Is there something to discuss, or is there another plot? Looking at King Bikoli lying in the rocking chair, Jinan smiled, as if he was meeting an old friend. My lord king, what do you want from me? Ah, it's been a while since we last met. You've been busy catching pirates. It's really hard for an old man like me to see you. Jinan shook his head, I don't like what the king said. I am doing this to maintain peace and stability. Look, I came here just because you called me this time. I even put aside other things just to see you. Bikely glanced at Jinan who was not too far away from him and said, you are still so talkative. He suddenly stretched out his hand to the attendant beside him and said, help me up and walk around. My old bones are becoming increasingly weak. He glanced at Jinan and said, you can follow me too. Jinan had no objection and followed the old king with light steps. Jinan perceived that the king was in good health and did not need any support. Was the reason for doing this to make him relax his vigilance? Unfortunately, whether the king was really sick or pretending to be sick, it made no difference to Jinan. What's the matter with calling me here? Just tell me. Bikola frowned slightly, obviously not satisfied with Jin An's reaction. He was the king, and he contributed a huge amount of heavenly gold to the world's nobles every year. It would be fine if a sailor was jumping up and down in front of the king, but now he doesn't even have the most basic respect. But thinking of Jin An's terrifying strength, he chose to endure it. Nothing, just want to catch up with you. Jinan sneered, even a 3-year-old child wouldn't believe such words. I heard that you have been promoted to colonel. Let me congratulate you here first. Beckley suppressed the discomfort in his heart and pretended to congratulate. Jinan responded simply, thank you. I heard that all the governors of the South China Sea have been stationed on Stewart Island. When are you going to leave for that? The old fox finally couldn't bear it anymore. I told Vice Admiral Garp that we won't go there for the time being. After all, it's too troublesome to move around. I still like it here. The people here are good-looking and speak nicely. Jinan put it bluntly, this old king is ugly and has wishful thinking. The factory he built here cannot be moved away just like that, and it will cost a huge amount of manpower and financial resources. Besides, he is now the boss of the South China Sea Navy. Wherever he is, that is the headquarters. Chapter 26, Beating the King. Are you going to throw all the rules set by the world government behind your back? Do you take the rules of this world seriously? Do you take the world government seriously? Do you take me, the king, seriously? Beckley stood in front of the window, becoming more and more excited as he spoke. The more he spoke, the more he felt that he was standing on the moral high ground. Jinan was the one who stopped his dream. I always keep these things in mind. Jinan said, patting his chest, except for that shitty world government and you, the king. But I also have a question for you as the king. Beckley couldn't hide his excitement, you can ask anything. I am very patient now. Do you care about your people? Jinan looked directly into the king's eyes. Without hesitation, Beckley said, of course I keep them in my heart. Without them, how can I raise the sky gold and live the life I have now? Still the sophisticated egoist as always, Jinan shook his head. There is nothing wrong with being selfish, but it is a bit unreasonable to do nothing and still want to build a good reputation. Your Majesty, if you can't do it, stop pretending. You may end up fooling yourself. Life is full of confusion, Jin An. Beckley sighed, we have been dealing with each other for so many years. It will be better for everyone if we both take a step back on some things. Beckley said slowly, do you remember what you said to me when we first met? You said that as long as you are on this island, the pirates will not have a chance to land. Jinan nodded, I have fulfilled all these promises. Pirates have not dared to pass through the kingdom of Salbi for such a long time. Now that you have successfully become the admiral of the South China Sea, can you go to other places to protect the people? Bikola directly stated his request. When the cunning rabbit dies, the running dog is cooked. You people really have no conscience. When his life was threatened, he held on to the thigh tightly, fearing that the person would run away. Now that there is no threat, he kicked it away. Jinan smiled and said, you guys who play power games have such dirty hearts. You really have a good plan. Thank you for the compliment. How could I sit in this position without a dirty heart? Beckley was not ashamed but proud of it. I won't say any more to you. Since you don't want to leave, I have plenty of ways to make you leave. Bikola turned his head, his eyes still sharp, and looked at Jinan with burning eyes, see you off, please ask this colonel to leave my palace. Snapped. A crisp sound echoed in the palace. Beckley covered his face in disbelief, you dare to hit me. Jinan stretched his head and looked left and right, alas what a pity, such a gorgeous palace, I would like to visit more, but now that the king has ordered, I can only leave. He walked out shaking his head and saying this, not taking the people here seriously at all. Stop! Beckley shouted incoherently. Someone! Arrest this traitor! I want to make his life a living hell. Jinan did not resist and cooperated with the guards to tie him up. The ropes were easy for him to break free from. Did you see what I did? Jinan asked. The people present in the palace were somewhat confused about what Jinan was thinking, but they still shook their heads honestly. They saw nothing, they just heard the king's orders. Jinan asked again, you didn't see anything, so why did you tie me up? You bastard, you are the only one among all the people here who has this motive, and you still want to deny it. The wound on my face can prove that it was all done by you, you bastard. Beckley couldn't hold back his anger and roared out loud. Jinan smacked his lips and said, if you want to accuse someone of something, you can always find a pretext. Snapped. Another slap was heard. What? This time, Bikola flew out and fell on the throne, his life or death unknown. You see, I told you it wasn't me. Jinan was still tied up, and he spoke nonchalantly to the guard who tied him up. The guards all looked as if they had seen a ghost and stood there at a loss. The captain of the guard who was in charge of maintaining public order was horrified, why don't you call a doctor? Looking at the king who was breathing in more than out, their faces turned pale. If anything happened to the king, all of them would be buried with him. Boom! Jinan exerted a little force, and all the ropes tied to his body broke into pieces on the ground. Since there is no way to prove it, you guys go ahead and I'll leave first. Without waiting for those people to respond, Jinan just patted his butt and left. I will take revenge. Beckley closed his resentful eyes and fell into a coma. Jinan laughed. Enemies usually say this and say he is despicable and shameless and will not die a good death. He doesn't care. He likes to see these people wanting to eat his flesh but unable to do anything about it. In the world of pirates, being weak is the original sin. When Jinan returned to the training ground, as expected, De Xiong was the only one still training. Ginny and Shanks were already sitting on the chairs to rest, and there was only one portion of breakfast left on the table. The process of training is actually a process of repeated suffering, and if you want to become stronger, you need to constantly break through yourself, which means that the suffering you need to endure will only increase. Brother, why did it take you so long to go to the palace? Shanks asked, removing his hand from his head. Jinan reluctantly withdrew his hand. The king was looking for trouble, so he was left there for a little longer. You need to pay attention to the old king's movements in the future. I'm afraid he will attack you. Once he finds out that he is no match for his opponent head-on, he will definitely resort to underhanded tactics, Jinan said. Shanks waved his fist and said, why don't we just take the initiative and lock him up somewhere where no one can find him? Your idea won't work. Go home and copy the family motto again. Jinan punched Shanks on the head. I think Shanks' method is a permanent solution. Ginny had the same idea as Shanks. Solving the problem from the root is the easiest way. Jinan shook his head, no matter how bad that guy is, he is still the king of a member country of the world government. It will not do us any good if we kill him casually. Besides, killing that guy will cause chaos in this country. There are many forces secretly eyeing this piece of fat meat. Ginny scratched her pink hair in annoyance. What should we do? A thief can only steal for 1,000 days, but we can't guard against thieves for 1,000 days. So you need to work hard to train. Being strong is more important than anything else. That's right, Shanks and the others have been comfortable for too long and have no sense of urgency at all. If this continues, it's unknown how long it will take them to gain the power to protect themselves. It would be better to create a danger for them directly so that they can stay focused. The great pirate era that will come later will be much more dangerous than the present one, and it is impossible for him to be by their side to protect them all the time. Blacksmith need its own hardware. Chapter 27 The Mysterious Disappearing Island. After that day's conversation, Shanks and the other two became much more diligent. Every day, Dakshung doesn't need his supervision, and he will complete the tasks set for the day on his own, and he will even exceed the targets. Colonel, you're finally here. Hua Shaishan was about to cry when he saw Jinan walk into the office. These days he has been living a life worse than death. He is either working overtime or on the way to work overtime. He gets up early and goes to bed late, and even has dark circles under his eyes. It's a fire on the mountain. Are you used to living here? Kuzan should have taken good care of you to familiarize yourself with the affairs here. Jinan felt a little guilty when he saw the dark circles under Hua Shaishan's eyes. But soon, his conscience was eaten by dogs. Colonel, these are the documents that have accumulated over the past few days and require your signature. Please take a look. As he spoke, Hua Shaishan moved aside, revealing the scene behind. In the office, documents are piled up like a mountain, and people standing in front of them can only sigh at their own insignificance. These, all of them. Jin An's voice trembled and he rubbed his eyes, fearing that he was hallucinating. Then, the words of Fire Mountain brought him back to reality and threw him into hell. Colonel, this is only part of it. Hua Shaishan was secretly pleased, there are still many in my office and Mr. Kuzan's office. Jinan's eyes went dark and he fainted. Hua Shaishan seemed to have predicted Jinan's actions in advance and instantly pulled out a chair from behind him. Jinan landed on the chair smoothly without any deviation. Then, Hua Shaishan pushed the chair and took Jinan to the desk. Are you devils? Jinan stretched out his shaking fingers and paused in front of the file. When will all these files be processed? Hua Shaishan was unmoved, all the documents in this room must be approved within the next 2 days. Colonel, please hurry up. After you finish processing, we will still need to assign personnel to deliver these documents to various places in the South China Sea, so please complete it as soon as possible. After saying that, Hua Shaishan hurriedly left the place, and even considerately closed the office door for Jinan. Sin. Through the door, Quzhan could still hear Jin An's heart-wrenching roar. Senior Quzhan. Hua Shaishan saluted, the mission has been accomplished. Laugh if you want to. Quzhan looked at Hua Shaishan's face, which was obviously smiling as he could no longer hold back his smile, and he shook his head and smiled as well. Report. I have been strictly trained. No matter what happens, I will not laugh. Hua Shaishan tried hard to control the muscles on his face, but it didn't work. Instead, the muscles started shaking uncontrollably. Really? Let's see if he dares to continue to be lazy. Quzhan, the poor worker, finally paid back all the resentment he had accumulated with interest. Those documents were a message he conveyed to the islands in the South China Sea. When the new governor of the South China Sea takes office, the most serious incidents in various places should be reported to the governor, who would handle them personally. As soon as this message was sent out, the navies on those islands in trouble were ecstatic and wanted to report all the big and small things happening there. Isn't it a bad idea for us to do this? Hua Shaishan was still a little uneasy. He thought that the colonel would not make things difficult for him when he realized what was happening. Quzhan comforted him, don't worry, our colonel is not a stingy person and won't take it to heart. As for whether it would be recorded in the little notebook, he couldn't guarantee it. Let's go, we still have a lot of things to do there. In order to achieve justice in his heart, Quzhan didn't care how much suffering he had to endure. The South China Sea remains calm as usual, with no major incidents occurring. The warm sunlight shone through the leaves onto the desk. Jinan bit his pen and frowned. He looked at the documents in his hands and on the desk, as if he saw 3 words, sucker. Jinan took the pen from his mouth and said, why are all these people asking me for money? I run a bank, where can I get so much money? Isn't it the headquarters that is in charge of distributing the money? What went wrong? Puzzled, Jinan could only make a note on the document requesting money, I don't have any money, but I have my life. If you have the guts, come to the kingdom of Salbi to discuss it in person. Then just reject all such files. They're always looking for things to do for me all day. Pirates are causing trouble on Mamulai Island again. Didn't they just raid that place not long ago? Jinan's head exploded. Mamuli Island is well known in the South China Sea and is rich in dairy cows. Jinan made a special trip there to taste the delicacies of this world. He thought that the pirates in this world were just like leeks, which would grow back immediately after one was cut. It seems that we need to deploy some decent naval forces to guard that island. If we only rely on support, the island will be devastated sooner or later. But overall, the South China Sea has been relatively stable during this period, and the momentum of pirates has been effectively curbed. Since the situation in the South China Sea is very good, he can take a good rest, improve his strength, and wait for the moment to fight with the strong men in this world. Boom boom boom. Colonel Jinan. A Navy officer pushed open the door, holding a stack of documents in his hand, and walked into the office anxiously, I have something strange to report to you. Can you please calm down for a while? His good mood is about to be ruined. Jinan said unhappily, what's the matter? Tell me about it. The Navy officer did not notice the change in his boss tone and said directly, I am a member of the newly formed scientific expedition team. I recently discovered something strange in the central part of the South China Sea. In the area we have been observing, a small island mysteriously disappeared. That island has a huge amount of crystal deposits, and many pirates used to occupy it. Hearing that there were only pirates on the island, Jinan was obviously relieved. Did you find anything unusual before the island disappeared? The Marine thought about it for a while, but had no idea. I'm very sorry, Colonel, we didn't notice anything wrong. It was as if the island disappeared out of thin air. We saw it in the afternoon the day before it disappeared, but it disappeared when we passed by it the next night. Okay, I'll go to the scene to check this matter out later. You go back first. It was the first time that Jinan received such a report, and he was a little concerned. The disappearance of small islands has happened many times in naval records. Some islands were sunk due to battles between powerful people, some were caused by natural disasters, and some were destroyed by giant sea kings. I wonder what caused this time. Jinan supported his chin with his hand, looking forward to the next investigation. Chapter 28, Hard Overtime Life. Colonel Jinan, are you getting ready to get off work? Quzhan glanced at the sky outside the window. The sun was still high in the sky. Jinan was a little embarrassed. He was caught running away. Quzhan, I have clothes drying at home. I need to go back and collect them. Otherwise, it would be a shame if they are blown away by the strong wind. That's a very strong reason. Kuzan didn't know how to complain about his boss. But, I've asked Shanks to pack it for you. Kuzan pushed the frame of his glasses on his nose with his hand. Fortunately he was prepared. I have other things I need to do. Jinan tried to make a final struggle. Kuzan covered his forehead helplessly. It was really unlucky to have such a boss. Colonel, have you processed all your documents? It's almost. Jinan's scalp tingled when he thought of the pile of documents on his desk. Kuzan's forehead was stern, and his tone became stern. Then you can't leave. You can leave when you are done. He was so disappointed with Jinan. He was only in his 20s and had a bright future, but why did he live like a man who was about to retire and was idle all day long? Actually, someone just came to me to report. I wanted to go and deal with that matter. Jinan suddenly had an idea and thought of an excuse. I already know about that matter. The people going there are already on their way. Kuzan stated the facts ruthlessly. Jinan murmured weakly, I am the boss. Kuzan stated the facts, people in the base don't see you for a few times a month. Jinan was completely controlled by Kuzan. How could he, as the top leader, do this? In fact, in the base, Kuzan is the number one person after Jinan. He handles things fairly and impartially, and his ability and strength are impeccable. But in fact, Kuzan himself didn't want this to happen. Everything was forced by Jinan. If your brother and sister knew. Kuzan's first words were a killer. Jinan raised his hands in surrender, got it. Jinan walked into the office again, feeling unmotivated. This guy Kuzan, write him down in my little notebook first, and I'll tell you about him later, he. Jinan laughed sinisterly. Kuzan, who was in another office, suddenly felt cold and shivered. That guy Jinan is saying bad things about me again. He has become accustomed to this strange reaction of his body. Ever since he came under Jinan's command, he has been shaking once a day. Bulu. Before Jinan had time to be happy after processing the documents, the call of the Den Mushi he carried with him suddenly rang. Jinan took out the Den Mushi from his arms and connected the call. Hello, I'm Jin An. As soon as the call was connected, Garp's loud voice came from the Den Mushi, ha, guess who I am? Lieutenant General Garp, did you call Bug over to settle the cost of the food you took away earlier? Jinan asked directly. Ha. Garp couldn't laugh anymore. Nonsense. Those things were obviously gifts from you. I just did as you said, take whatever you want. Just empty my warehouse, right? Jinan said with a smile, okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Vice Admiral Garp, what's the matter with calling the Bug? Look at what you said. Can't I call you if there's nothing wrong? Garp was a little unconvinced. Jinan rolled his eyes, why aren't you? I always play by myself, and only think of others when I find something troublesome. Why don't you say anything? I don't think I'm that kind of person in your eyes. Garp blew his beard and glared, forget it, I won't talk to you about this anymore. Let's talk about business first. Just tell me what you want to say. He said it, and sure enough, there were still people who wanted to ask him something. Ahem. Garp cleared his throat, Long has already set off for the South China Sea. I hope you can discipline him more when the time comes. Jinan felt a little puzzled. There shouldn't be any need to call specifically to explain these things. Sure enough, Garp continued, 2 other people followed him to look for you. No problem, just 2 more people. Who are those 2 extra people? Jinan didn't care. They were all people coming to work for him, so the more the better. Zepha's wife and son. Garp replied. Jinan was confused, no, you sent your son to me for custody, I can understand, what is Zepha thinking, his wife should not come here to join the army, is Zepha willing? Cough. As if sensing Zephyr's unfriendly look, Garp knew that his old friend was in a bad mood and couldn't help coughing twice. What's wrong, Vice Admiral Garp? Are you sick? Jinan pretended to be concerned and asked, no wonder you don't have time to teach the children. Although he gained free labor, Jinan still didn't want his Nanhai to become a nursery, otherwise his nickname in the future would be Young, Middle, General of the Nursery. Garp said unhappily, don't talk nonsense, Zepha's wife and children are going to the South China Sea for vacation. Jinan couldn't understand what was so fun about the South China Sea. There are nothing but pirates. Staying beside the admiral, you can't see anything, and your safety is guaranteed. Why would they think of coming to the South China Sea, a remote place like this? No. Zifa already has a child? Then next year his wife and children. You just need to take care of that kid. Long Zifa will take care of the arrangements himself. Garp said in a deep voice. Jinan felt a little overwhelmed. That was the general's family. He couldn't imagine the scene if something happened on his territory. Jinan wanted to struggle again. Is it too late to refuse now? It's too late. Long and the others set off this morning. Cap shook his head. Ah. Jinan's mind was in a mess. He was well aware of Zifa's contributions to the navy, and he didn't want him to have such a miserable old age. But he didn't know whether the pirates would take action early because Zifa's family had left Zifa's sight. I don't know if I have the ability to prevent the death of Zifa's family. Jinan didn't believe that the pirate who dared to kill the general's family could be some unknown person. Even Zifa couldn't stop it, so how could he possibly do it? Hello? Jinan, are you still listening? Hey? Is there something wrong? Why has no one spoken for such a long time? Garp called for a long time but no one responded. He thought there was something wrong with the Den Den Mushi. Jinan can only take one step at a time and see what happens. Chapter 29 Don Quixote 1. I'll take care of it, Vice Admiral Garp. Jinan came out of his thoughts and gave a simple answer. Jinan, I have one more thing to remind you out of concern for my friend. Garp said to Jinan with a serious expression. Jinan smiled, ha ha ha, this is the first time I hear Garp say you are my friend. There is about a 20-year age difference between him and Garp, and the latter is a high-ranking lieutenant general. Jinan has always regarded himself as a junior. You kid, I'm talking to you seriously. Garp was so angry. Jinan restrained his smile and said, you say. Garp took a deep breath and said, 4 days ago, 4 people with special identities were heading for the North Sea, but for some unknown reason they suddenly changed direction and headed for the South Sea. A special identity. And Garp also emphasized the word human, so the person coming here is definitely not a small person. I'll keep an eye on it. Jinan nodded. He was quite curious about the identities of these 4 people, but in his memory, nothing major seemed to have happened this year. Hiss, Jinan frowned, as if he suddenly thought of something. It can't be that incident. According to the timeline, it seems that it could be that incident. Matters involving the celestial dragons are not easy to handle. The people of Nanhai are hospitable and honest, so bad incidents won't happen, right? That's all I have to say. Prepare yourself. In Garp's opinion, the celestial dragons would not do anything out of line even if they came to Jinan's territory. The purpose of reminding Jinan was also to prevent him from contacting those people. He knew how much the people in this world hated the celestial dragons, and he didn't want Jinan to be dragged into it. 4 days ago, in the holy land of Marijoa. Ah? Are you crazy? Ancient Saint Huo Ming. How can someone of your status? Would you rather give up your status as a god and become an ordinary person? A group of Tianlong people surrounded Huo Ming Gushan, their faces full of confusion and anger. Huo Ming Gushan, with his wife and children, stood opposite these Tianlong people, looking at them with a smile on his face. We have always been human beings. The Tianlong people were full of resentment. Do you want to say that we are the same as you? This is blasphemy. What do you think of the celestial dragons? You damn traitor, you've been an outlier since the beginning. That's right. You traitor. No matter what those Tianlong people said, Huo Ming Gushan still had a calm face. I don't care how you look at me, but I believe that humans are great. Living as a human being must be a very meaningful thing, and it can make my life more fulfilling. That's what I believe in. Doflamingo, wearing sunglasses, had no expression on his face. He didn't know why his father had to leave this place, which was obviously so beautiful. After hearing what ancient sage Huo Ming said, the Tianlong people were completely unable to understand and only felt naked betrayal. Do you know what you are saying? You are so arrogant. Since you want to leave so badly, get out of Marijoa. 3 days ago, at the edge of the North Sea. Major General Kuru, can you send us to the South China Sea? Huo Ming Gushan looked at the newspaper in his hand with a smile on his face. This was why he yearned for human beings. The top headline of the newspaper, Jinan, the spiritual leader of the South China Sea, has now been officially awarded the rank of Colonel by the Navy headquarters and is in charge of the entire South China Sea. Yes, we can. Kuru hesitated, but we are not prepared in advance. Your accommodation may need to be rearranged. Huoming Gusheng smiled and said, it doesn't matter. You can arrange accommodation as you like. Then may I ask Lord Ancient Saint Huoming, which island do you want to go to? Kuru asked for advice. Ancient Saint Huoming glanced at the place name in the newspaper and said, just send us to the kingdom of Salbi. Kuru was startled, he felt this place was very familiar. It's an island that Vice Admiral Garp has visited before. It seems that the person in charge there is quite interesting. That's right, that's why I want to go there. Huoming Gushan looked towards the south with a hint of expectation in his eyes. He really wanted to meet Colonel Jinan, who was respected by the people of Nanhai. The mountain is on fire. You little bastard, come here quickly. Jinan's loud shout came from the office. Hua Shaishan was startled and immediately stood up from his seat and rushed to Jinan's office without stopping. Colonel, what's the matter with calling me here? Hua Shaishan felt a little uneasy. He was afraid that what he had been worrying about would become a reality. Why are you so nervous? Jinan showed a half smile, did you do something bad and are afraid that I will find out? Hua Shaishan shook his head like a rattle and denied it 3 times in a row, I didn't, I wasn't, I don't know. Okay, don't be so nervous, just treat this place as your own home. Jinan said earnestly. Hua Shaishan nodded repeatedly, but in his heart he just thought Jinan was talking nonsense. He just ate and slept at home. If he really did that, Jinan would definitely beat him up. Has the Navy responsible for investigating the situation in the South China Sea recently reported to you any special ships entering the South China Sea? Jinan asked. Hua Shaishan was confused because the range Jinan provided was too large and he was not sure what kind of ship information Jinan needed. For the Navy, the pirate ships that are of special concern, the ships of the kings of the allied countries, and the ships of the world government are all very special. What kind of special do you mean? The scope is too wide, so I can only continue asking. The world government's ship. Jinan replied. Hua Shaishan thought for a moment and said, there are many world government ships entering the South China Sea recently. Most of them are merchant ships that purchase supplies for the celestial dragons, but those ships go directly to the places where the supplies are purchased, so there is nothing special to pay attention to. Is that so? Jinan touched his chin. Could it be that the information that Karp gave him was wrong? Those people did not actually regard the South China Sea as their destination, but were just passing through the South China Sea. Okay, nothing happened. You can do whatever you need to do. Jinan waved his hand to indicate that everything was fine here. Hua Shaishan was confused. You called me here in such a hurry, but this is the result? Just as Hua Shaishan was about to leave, hurried footsteps were heard in the corridor. Soon, Quzan appeared in front of the desk. Colonel Jinan, there is a world government ship that has not been notified in advance and is about to dock at the coast of the kingdom of Salbi. Quzan spoke directly without even having time to greet Hua Shaishan. Jinan glanced at the burning mountain, and a dangerous look flashed in his eyes. Hua Shaishan, Colonel, please listen to my explanation. Chapter 30, The Castle and the Ancient Saint Huoming. On the coast of the kingdom of Salbi, a warship belonging to the world government was parked on the shore. We can only take you here. This is the kingdom of Salbi in the South China Sea. It is also a member of the world government. We have prepared accommodation and sufficient property for you all on the island. I think it will ensure that you can live a worry-free life in the future. The Navy lined up to see off Saint Huoming and his entourage. Kuru stood in front of the team and gave final instructions to Saint Huoming. Thank you, that's enough. Huoming Gushan thanked the Navy. It has always been his dream to escape from Marijoa. When he set foot on this island, it meant that he had completely bid farewell to his past. Next, you can experience the joys, sorrows, anger and happiness of ordinary humans. Kuru continued, then we will take back your celestial dragon identification chips. The chip represents the identity and status of the celestial dragons as well as the privileges they enjoy. Only those with the chip can be called celestial dragons. Otherwise, even if one has the blood of a celestial dragon, he or she will not be recognized. Huoming Gushan showed no reluctance and directly handed the chip over. Kuru took the chip from them and said, then I wish you all a safe and happy life in the future. We will return to Marijoa first. Walk slowly. As the Navy watched, the group of 4 walked towards the island. This is the first time I've seen such an easygoing celestial dragon. It's a pity that there is no such Tianlong person left now. It's my first time working for the celestial dragons, and I'm so happy. What a pity. The navy all thought that Huo Ming Gushan and his men were easy to get along with, and they admired them for making such a choice. Just imagine if any of the navy here were enjoying the benefits of being a celestial dragon, they would not make such a choice. This shows how powerful the ancient sage Huo Ming is. Okay, let's stop discussing this. Kuru retracted his gaze, let's return. Quzhan, are you telling the truth? Hua Shaishan asked with a bitter face. His face felt so painful and he couldn't understand why he kept encountering such things, and every time it was a public execution. Quzhan nodded, of course it's true. Although the place where the ship stopped is vast and sparsely populated, it was still discovered by the scouts. Jinan put on his coat and said, let's go and see what's going on. Then he walked out first. Hua Shaishan, who was following behind, said with a bitter face, Quzhan, next time you report something, can you choose a time when I'm not around? Why? Quzhan thought the request to burn the mountain was a bit strange. Because it hurts. Hua Shaishan covered his face and quickly caught up with Jinan. Quzhan looked puzzled, but still focused his attention on what was happening on the coast. Just as Jinan opened the door, the system came with another task. Ding! Please ask the host to take the initiative to contact the ancient saint Huo Ming, and change the relationship with him from stranger to any favorable impression. Task reward, 10 hours of training space, 5,000 mall points 1,000 million Baileys. I wish the host a smooth mission, scatter flowers. Through the tasks issued by the system, Jinan also determined the people who came to the island, and it was indeed Doflamingo's family. This is also a hidden function of the system, which allows him to know in advance the people and events he will face next. It saves him time to investigate. Quzhan, where is the ship anchored? Jinan asked the only person present who knew the situation. Quzhan pointed to the north of this island, there is a coast surrounded by forests. There are few people there. Almost no one goes there. I heard that it was a place where pirates often landed in the past. In order to avoid the war, people would subconsciously avoid that place. After hearing Quzhan's answer, Jinan also remembered that place. It was indeed a sparsely populated place, and it was a good landing spot for Huo Ming Gushan and his men. Huo Ming Gushan actually gave Jinan a pretty good impression. During his time as a celestial dragon, he never bullied ordinary people. He was friendly to others and had a kind heart. He underestimated the hatred that people in this world had for the celestial dragons and brought his entire family into the fire pit. When his wife and children were in danger, he risked his life to protect them. Unfortunately, he had no power or rights, so he could only be slaughtered and unable to resist. Jinan didn't understand the feelings of those people oppressed by the celestial dragons. In his opinion, it would be more beneficial than harmful for them if the celestial dragons were willing to give up their identities and integrate into the group of ordinary people. Perhaps because of the success of Huo Ming Gushan, the Tianlong people will be split into 2 camps. On the contrary, if an ordinary person kills the ancient saint Huo Ming, the Tianlong people will only applaud and then intensify their persecution of civilians. The Tianlong people who intend to get close to civilians will also give up their fantasies and focus on pleasure. Hey! When did a castle appear in that place ahead? Near the coast, Jinan suddenly saw a magnificent castle that looked like it had been built not long ago. Quzhan was also curious, I remember there was no patrol on the island some time ago. Look, there are people at the castle gate. Hua Shaishan said, pointing at the castle in front. Jinan and Quzhan looked closely and saw that there were indeed 4 people carrying luggage, standing in front of the castle and opening the door. There is something I have always been curious about Hua Shao Mountain. Can you help me solve it? Jinan led the 2 of them towards the castle. Hua Shaishan, who was following behind Jinan, became more alert. Colonel Jinan actually had something to ask him. Ask. Are your eyes open? It's no wonder Jinan asked this question. Hua Shaishan's eyes seemed to be closed, but many times he could observe things that Jinan and the others didn't notice. Colonel, your question is very rude. And Quzhan, don't show such an interested expression. Hua Shaishan felt like his heart was stabbed twice. Of course my eyes are open. Hua Shaishan tried hard to open his eyes wide to prove it, but he still looked unchanged. Father, look! Is there someone approaching here in the woods? Rosinante looked into the distance through her hair. Huoming Gusheng pushed open the door and looked back. Someone really is coming. You go in first, I'll see why those people came here. Watching his family enter the castle, ancient Saint Huoming calmly stood at the door and waited for the three men to approach. Hello, we want to ask you something. Is it convenient for you? Hua Shaishan still had that soothing smile on his face. Huoming Gushan nodded politely, you can ask, but I just moved here and may not know much about this island. He looked at the faces of the three men and the uniforms they were wearing, and felt that the leader looked familiar. You are. Chapter 31 Castle and Jin and number 039, An. Hello, nice to meet you. Jinan extended his hand and said with a warm smile, my name is Jinan, the person in charge of this island. Huoming Gusheng stretched out his hands and held Jinan's hands tightly, nice to meet you, Colonel Jinan, I am Don Quixote Huoming Gusheng. Compared to the gentle and calm fatherly image in front of his family, Huoming Gushan's tone now can be said to have become that of a little fanboy. I have been in a relationship with Colonel Jinan for a long time. I finally met him today. I feel so honored. Jinan waved his hand and chuckled, I don't deserve it. I'm actually curious as to why you chose this island as your home. Huoming Gusheng was stunned for a moment and then smiled, the place where you live for the rest of your life naturally needs to be carefully selected. I learned from the newspaper that the South China Sea is the only one in the four seas that Colonel Jinan is in charge of, and that is what I feel most at ease with. Haha, I can guarantee that the South China Sea will be the safest sea area. It is now and will always be in the future. Jinan directly stated his ambition. What he did was better than what the navies in other sea areas did. I am ashamed of my previous identity as a Tianlong. I cannot change other Tianlong people's minds, so I can only move here myself. Huoming Gushan sighed lightly. It is really difficult to change people's minds. Celestial Dragon. Hua Shaishan opened his mouth wide with a look of disbelief. When did the Celestial Dragons become so reasonable? Shouldn't they point guns at people and make them become their slaves as soon as they meet? Huoming Gusheng said with a smile, yes, I am a former Tianlong Ren. Now I am just an ordinary human being. Come in and sit in your house? Although this is my first time going in there too. Haha, I've never seen the interior of such a large castle. It's a good opportunity to go in and take a look. Colonel Jinan, two little brothers, let's go in together. Castle interior. Jinan looked at the layout of the castle and couldn't help but sigh, this is a real wealthy family. It's so luxurious here, Quzhan and Hua Shaishan exclaimed together. They both had always lived in the dormitory and had never seen such a scene even in their dreams. There's quite a big difference between here and where I lived before. Huoming Gushan murmured. Jinan and the other two rolled their eyes at the same time. The Tianlong people never disappoint anyone when it comes to enjoyment. Marijoa gathers the most wealth in the world. To the celestial dragons, gold, silver, and treasures are just like ordinary stones, things that can be found everywhere. Therefore, they cannot imagine the lives of ordinary people at all. Of course, ordinary people cannot imagine the lives of those nobles. Huoming Gushan led the three people into the living room and introduced them to his wife and children. These three are my guests. You can come and meet them. These are my wife and two sons. Huoming Gushan introduced them to Jinan and the others. Doflamingo, Rosinante. This is the Colonel Jinan I've been telling you about. Doflamingo, wearing sunglasses, looked at Jinan and the other two expressionlessly without any reaction, while Rosinante nervously grabbed his father's trouser leg and hid behind. I'm sorry, this is the first time they meet a stranger. Huoming Gushan smiled gently and cast an apologetic look at Jinan and the other two. Jinan waved his hands, not caring at all, it's okay, it's normal for children to be shy. Father, where are the slaves? Let them do the cleaning. We are so tired just bringing in the luggage. Rosinante said in a low voice while hiding behind his father. Quzhan and Hua Shaishan looked at each other and their faces changed. Everyone present had a certain level of strength, and even though Rosinante spoke in a low voice, it was clearly heard by their ears. Alas! Ancient Saint Huoming said softly, Dover, Rosinante, I must teach you from the beginning. We will have to do these things by ourselves from now on. I don't want it. These things are obviously done by slaves. Doflamingo became angry. The ancient Saint Homing placed his hand on Doflamingo's head and taught him carefully, Dov, we must live as human beings. Doflamingo raised his head, human. Yes, Our lives will be richer than when we were in Marigosa. Ancient Saint Huoming nodded. When I say rich, I don't mean in terms of material things, but in our hearts. Doflamingo gritted his teeth, obviously not agreeing with his father's idea. I'm sorry to have embarrassed you. Huoming Gushan sighed. He knew that changing a child's mind would not be effective in a short period of time. Hua Shaishan shook his head repeatedly, no, no. Jinan beckoned to Huoming Gusheng, come with me first. Then the two of them walked into the yard. It's not easy to change a child's thoughts. You don't need to feel psychologically burdened. Jinan comforted. I understand that, but Dover's ideas are a bit paranoid, and I'm a little worried. Jinan stopped in front of the lush tree and said, the first thing you need to worry about now is your identity. Identity? Huoming Gushan was puzzled. Since you are from Marigosa, I would like to ask you, how did you treat slaves in the past? I don't have many demands on slaves. I usually just ask them to clean and organize things. Jinan was really surprised at this time. He thought that the Tianlong man in front of him might be fake. So do you know what other celestial dragons look like? I've heard about this. They will let the slaves compete with each other, and only the strongest one will remain. You celestial dragons are executioners in the eyes of the common people. Although I know you are a little different, everyone in this world who has been hurt by the celestial dragons will not think so. As long as they know you are a celestial dragon, they will use any means necessary to kill you. Huoming Gusheng involuntarily took 2 steps back and almost fell to the ground. If that's the case, will my wife and children die because of my decision? But the human beings I expect are obviously noble and great. Jinan shattered his fantasy. Humans are actually impulsive and irrational. When driven by anger, they can make decisions that are completely different from usual. Then Huoming Gushan could no longer hold on and fell to the ground. Would you like to join us so that you can protect your family? Jinan extended his hand to Huoming Gushan. This is Jin An's purpose, to bring a former Tianlong into his team, let him see the true side of this world, and let him understand that the life of ordinary people is not easy. If it can develop into a situation where the former celestial dragons lead ordinary people to rebel against the celestial dragons, it means that this world can still be saved. Mission completed. Progress, mission targets impression, sincerely convinced. The reward has been delivered, please check it. Bulu Bulu, Bulu Bulu. Report. Monkey D Dragon's warship has entered the port. They came so quickly. Jinan looked up at Dover in the room, it seems that I can take them to do something interesting. Chapter 32, First Experience of Dragon and Number 039, S Kingdom of Salbi. When Monkey D. Dragon walked out of the cabin, he saw the prosperous city scene of the Salbi Kingdom. He rubbed his head, which was a little tired due to the long journey, and then looked back at the cabin. Sorry, Long, we asked you to give us a ride. A gentle voice sounded in the cabin. Then, the brown-haired woman walked out of the cabin with a child in her arms, smiling. Long said without a smile, our destination is the same, it's no trouble. Long and the woman got off the warship, and then according to the information, they crossed the busy streets and went directly to the naval base. There were many shops on both sides of the street, and many of the things there were the first time they had seen them. However, they did not stop there as these things were not very attractive to them. After crossing several streets, a much more luxurious naval base appeared in front of them. The number of Navy personnel on the street was also obviously much larger, but most of them were in a hurry. From time to time, there were eyes lingering on Long from all around, most of them were young girls, and occasionally there was a sweet laugh, full of youth and vitality. It can be seen that even in the economically prosperous kingdom of Salbi, there are not many men as handsome as Long. Long didn't care much about those glances directed at him. He kept a cold face from beginning to end, and his black eyes were like a deep abyss. Although he was not very old, he had the appearance of a mature young man. Long, many girls look at you interestingly. Zifa's wife chuckled with her hand covering her mouth. Hearing this, Long's expression became a little tense, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. I'm still young. Hehe, I was just kidding. Look at your reaction. The woman laughed without caring about her image. Sometimes Long really wants to cry. These elders of his are more out of touch than the other, and they don't look like what they should be like at their age. Suddenly, there was a commotion on the street ahead, and people scattered everywhere. A group of armored soldiers lined up in an orderly manner and marched towards the port. The country's armed forces are pretty good, but why are people so afraid of them? Long felt that there must be something fishy here. You are from outside, right? The sweet-looking girl at the side saw Long's confusion and lowered her voice. This is actually the traditional art of the current king. You don't have to take it to heart. Can you tell me what's going on? Zifa's wife's curiosity was aroused. The girl looked around and found that no one was paying attention to this place, so she explained to Long and the others, in the past 2 years, with the governance of Colonel Jinan, the sea has become much calmer, and people have become more and more adoring and respectful of Colonel Jinan. Well, I've always heard that Jinan is loved by people, but I didn't expect that he has done so well. This should be a happy ending for your country. Long nodded, and he very much approved of Jinan's approach. You are wrong. Maybe the king felt his authority was threatened, so he added a lot of unnecessary drills. The girl sighed. This is the case where when gods fight, mortals suffer. The king wanted to show his people that his army could also defend the country, but people were very disgusted with the king's actions. This has had a serious impact on their lives, but they dare not speak out. This king is going too far. The dragon said angrily, is there no one to take care of him? The girl looked at Long with an expression as if to say, are you stupid? What's wrong? Am I wrong? Long was a little confused. Zifa's wife looked at the young man who had been focusing on catching pirates. Dragon, who do you think has the most power in a country? Of course it's the king. Long blurted out. The girl spread her hands, look, don't you know too? You, him. Long Yu was shocked by his own stupidity. How could this king be so outrageous? He is totally incompetent. Colonel Jinan also went to communicate with the king in person, but unfortunately nothing changed in the end. Talking about Jinan, the girl felt better. No one can object to the king's management of all the country's affairs. The navy is only responsible for maintaining security and has no right to be accountable to the king. Even the king could order his country's navy to do things for him. But it's okay. This kind of thing only happens a few times a year. What's wrong with the old emperor? It hasn't been that long since the last time. The girl has a good attitude and is only slightly dissatisfied with her current life. Long pursed his lips slightly. If someone familiar was nearby and saw Long's action, they would know that he was angry. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. Be careful to avoid the king's soldiers. The girl saw that the soldiers had disappeared, so she said goodbye to Long and the others and left. Zifa's wife looked at the dragon calmly. Don't you think it's ridiculous that people can only silently endure things that could have been avoided just because of the king's decision? There are so many things like this in this world. While you are focusing on catching pirates, you can also take a look at what the world is like. Garp has always protected his son very well, so Long has too little experience now. Maybe Garp discovered this, so the dragon appeared here now. Let's go, and see what Jinan, who has always been praised by Garp, looks like. The woman walked forward holding the child. For the first time, Long felt the powerlessness of a navy officer, and he began to doubt the justice he had always believed in. Navy, navy. The dragon god traveled in the sky, and his feet moved lightly to keep up with the woman's pace. In the lobby on the first floor of the naval base, the staff responsible for receiving guests looked helpless. Every time someone looked for Colonel Jinan, he was always not there. We have called Colonel Jin An. The receptionist estimated the time and said, we can only ask you to wait. He has gone to deal with some things and it will take some time for him to come back. You guys go ahead and do your work, we'll just wait here. Zifa's wife didn't care. She knew that the closer one was to the grassroots, the more things he or she would do, which was normal. Originally, she didn't need to wait here with Long, but after what happened just now, she was still very curious about what kind of person Jinan was. Boy, you'd better behave yourself. Do you still think you are that high and mighty world noble? Under my hand, you have to coil up like a dragon or lie down like a tiger. If you keep giving me a cold shoulder, be careful or I'll spank you. Under the gaze of everyone, Doflamingo was grabbed by the collar and taken to the naval base by Jinan. Chapter 33 Recording Beautiful Moments. Put me down, no one has ever dared to do this to me. The little boy waved his arms wildly trying to break free from the control of the big hand, his face twisted and hideous because of anger. Jinan immediately let go of his hand that was holding onto his collar and said, if you keep talking to me in that tone, I'll really give you a beating. Ah! My butt! The little boy covered his butt, which was broken into 8 pieces and rolled back and forth on the ground. Seeing Doflamingo rolling on the ground as if he was dying, Jinan slowly squatted down and took out the den mushi. This kid's reaction was a bit too much. Suddenly, a hint of teasing flashed across Jinan's eyes. Since you are not afraid of being embarrassed, he would like to record this scene carefully. Maybe it can add some fun to it in the future. This kid has now become his apprentice, and to be honest, Jinan is still a little reluctant. Doflamingo was a ruthless man who didn't care about human life at the age of 8 and dared to kill his own father at the age of 10. Having such a disciple, Jinan was afraid that he would be stabbed in the back. What are you doing? Seeing the den mushi in Jinan's hand, Doflamingo couldn't roll anymore. He covered his butt and struggled to get up. Jinan put the den mushi in his pocket, record the beautiful moments. Doflamingo glared at Jinan angrily. Although the man in front of him looked harmless and easy to get along with, when you really get to know him, you will feel that he is not a good person. He had only cursed a few times, but he was beaten in various ways. Just now, he was pulled by the collar as he walked past many people. His face felt like it was on fire when he thought of this. He also wants to save face. And this person seemed to be dissatisfied with his glasses. He kept staring at them. He thought he looked very handsome wearing glasses. Thinking of this, Doflamingo's eyes seemed to be more alert, as if the man in front of him had a deep hatred for him. Why did you bring me here? Why didn't you bring my brother here? Hearing Doflamingo's repeated questioning, Jinan, who had been doing nothing, came back to his senses and looked at the boy with an angry face. After being influenced by the celestial dragons for a long time, even these children are full of a condescending mentality and do not take others seriously at all. If this habit is deprived in a short period of time, it will cause greater changes in the already unhealthy outlook on life. It may develop in a good direction, but it is more likely to become worse. It is so evil that the evil in one's heart is infinitely magnified until it devours the heart and affects innocent people. Based on Jinan's understanding, Doflamingo is obviously the second type of person. The reason he wears glasses is also because of the desires and violence hidden in his heart. The current Doflamingo has not experienced the suffering after his identity as a celestial dragon was exposed. At most, he looks down on civilians, and has not yet developed a mentality of destroying everything. Thinking of this, when he looked at Doflamingo again, Jinan put on a warm smile and said, "From now on, you will follow me. If I tell you to go east, you must not go west. Your next task is to learn to obey orders." Looking at the smiling Jinan, Doflamingo felt a sudden chill in his body for some reason, but he was still not convinced. He stared at Jinan under his sunglasses and said, "You are a colonel. But you are not worthy of asking me to obey you. I used to have a major general at the bottom of my rank. You can't just shout at my identity and status. Although my father took us away from Marijoa, we are still noble celestial dragons." He possesses extraordinary self-confidence, which has accompanied him for 8 years and remains so today. Are the celestial dragons that powerful? Jinan sneered, put his mouth close to Doflamingo's ear, and whispered in a devilish voice. "They are just a bunch of pigs kept in Marijoa. They eat and sleep, and they gain nothing except weight. They eat the dividends brought by the seniors, but do things worse than animals. Do you really think this identity is so noble? There are many people in this world who can quietly erase a person's existence. Then why can't that person be a celestial dragon? The celestial dragons have always considered themselves as the descendants of the Creator. Many of them even consider themselves to be too noble to even breathe the same air as ordinary people. They have ruled this world for 800 years. But it has always been right. Jinan thinks it is complete nonsense. Practice is the sole criterion for testing truth, and strength is the stepping stone to verify this process. So, kid, don't take yourself too seriously. Take a good look at yourself." Doflamingo was already shocked by what Jinan said. He couldn't believe that someone would look at the celestial dragons in this way. He couldn't believe that the identity he had always been proud of was not worth mentioning in the other party's eyes. He couldn't believe that there was no emotion in this person's eyes. He is serious. "Okay, I won't scare you anymore." Jinan restrained his expression. "But there is something I need to tell you. The celestial dragons no longer recognize your identity as celestial dragons, starting from the moment you left Marijoa." In Doflamingo's horrified eyes, Jinan continued, "Even if you kill the father who caused this situation, you will get nothing. Oh, except for the ridicule from those high-ranking celestial dragons." Jinan looked at Doflamingo, who was staring at him blankly, and then said, "Get up, follow me. In the future, I will give you things that the celestial dragons can't give you, power, freedom, and strength. You can get whatever you want. And let me advise you, your family is the most precious thing you have. If you lose it, you will definitely regret it." Speaking of this, Jin An's eyes revealed a trace of loneliness. He had lost his family forever the moment he came into this world. As soon as Jin An finished speaking, a hurried voice came from behind him. "Boss, you're finally back. The guests have been waiting for you inside for a while." The receptionist shouted loudly when he saw Jin An outside the door. Jin An slapped his head. He was so focused on educating his children that he had forgotten about Long and the others. Now he seemed a little impolite. Hearing about someone is worse than meeting them in person. In the naval base, Long slowly revealed his figure. "Nice to meet you. I'm Monkey D. Dragon. Dragon has a strong build and is about 200 centimeters tall." Jin An standing in front of him looks like a child who has not grown up. But in terms of momentum, Jin An is sure to surpass Long. First meet. Chapter 34, Saving a Divided Nation. As Jin An's voice sounded, a woman in a pink dress came out of the house holding a child. The woman's face is filled with a bright smile, giving people a feeling of being bathed in spring breeze, and she can bring a lot of good feelings to people just at first sight. The child in my arms didn't cry or make a fuss. He looked at the world with a smile, as if he was very interested in everything. The woman nodded gently to Jin An, her courtesy was impeccable. "Hello, I am Zifa's wife. I have always heard Zifa talk about you, and today I finally have the honor of meeting you." No, I have always admired General Zifa and you. I will definitely bring gifts to visit you when I go to Marineford. Zifa and his wife have made great contributions to the Navy. Many people in the Navy respect them very much, and Jin An is no exception. However, Jin An is not planning to go to Marineford yet, as he might run into trouble if he goes there. "That's a deal. Zifa and I are looking forward to seeing you coming to Marineford." She could see that Long had something to say to Jin An, and if she continued to stay here, Long might feel embarrassed. "Then I'll be leaving first. You can have a good chat with Long." She didn't stay any longer, said hello to them and chose to leave. He looked back and looked at the child in his arms tenderly. "You must become a man like them in the future. So, what do you want to say to me next?" Jin An took a sip of the tea in the cup and slowly asked Long, who had a cold face opposite him. There were only the two of them in the room, giving them some space to be alone. Long remained silent, so Jin An had to speak first. "My old man asked me to come and learn something from you, but I feel like there's nothing much to learn from you." Long looked down on the man in front of him. Everyone here respects each other so much, but in Long's eyes, Jin An is clearly the kind of parasite who does nothing, never leaves the house, and only knows how to enjoy himself. "In your eyes, who is qualified to teach you?" Jin An was not angry and continued to rock the chair. Long said in a muffled voice, "At least it's not like you." Originally, in his opinion, a person who could be praised by Sengoku, Zifa, and his father would be a man of integrity, or at least someone who would work hard to make a career. But when he actually met him, he found out that this guy was just an ordinary colonel stationed in the South China Sea who was crazy about fishing. Even before this guy's military rank was not as high as his. Jin An looked at Long and said, "Kid, you look like a typical person who has never been beaten. How can you say directly that we are not suitable for each other as soon as you meet? You should at least be a little more tactful. I don't really want to agree to this. If you don't want me to teach you, I'd rather have nothing else to do." Jin An yawned. It didn't make any difference whether there was one more tool or one less. Long couldn't stand Jin An's lazy look. "Can you do something that will benefit the civilians?" Jin An turned his head and said with a half smile, "Then I'd like to hear your opinion. It seems like you have only been here for a short time. What makes you think you know me well enough?" Long stretched out his neck. From what he saw and heard along the way, he could tell that people's lives here were not so satisfactory. He didn't know how much better the living environment he had grown up in was than here. "Everything I see with my own eyes can prove it." "Then I hope your eyes won't deceive you. You can go." Since they were not on the same page, Jin An waved his hand and let him go. He had nothing to say to this self-righteous kid. Since he trusted his own judgment so much, it would be fine for him to learn on his own. Long slammed the door and walked out. He couldn't understand why the Navy headquarters would let such a person manage an area of sea. Were they afraid that the people here would live too well? As the door closed, Long stood at the door in a daze. He knew that his actions were a bit extreme, but when he thought of Jin An's inaction, he couldn't remain calm. Any decision made by those in power will lead to polar changes in the lives of the people at the bottom. What a bastard! He gritted his teeth and punched the wall. He wanted to just leave and tell his father what he had seen and heard, but he still hesitated. Colonel Monkey D. Long, right? Kuzan adjusted his glasses and asked Long, who looked aggrieved. Although Long was in a bad mood, he still nodded patiently, yes, I am. I'm Kuzan. Kuzan invited, I see you seem a little depressed, do you want to go with me to relax? The upset Long felt extremely uncomfortable when he saw the Navy at this base, and he was in no mood to go for a walk with a stranger. Kuzan did not give up. He ruffled his curly hair and looked at the young man in front of him who was only a few years older than him with twinkling eyes. Don't refuse yet. I'm just trying to save the reputation of our colonel. Long sneered. Reputation? This guy still has a reputation? Believe it or not, it's up to you. Anyway, going there to relax is a good choice. Kuzan spread his hands. Walking out of the naval base, the streets in front of us are still busy with traffic. The vendors along the street began to shout again, and pedestrians continued to flow in an endless stream, with laughter and chatter all the time. Just as Long was lamenting the cruelty of the world, he felt someone patting his right shoulder. It wasn't so lively here before. I have always followed Colonel Jinan and watched this street gradually become what it is today. Kuzan sighed, his eyes full of memories. Long was a little bit unbelievable. Such a prosperous street was actually built only in recent years? No one would believe it. Seeing the distrust in the dragon's eyes, Kuzan didn't explain too much, let's go forward. Big brother. The girl, with a look of surprise on her face, smiled and ran towards where the dragon was. Do you know each other? Kuzan asked curiously. I just met her, and she explained a lot of things to me. Long said with some emotion, it was also through her words that I understood the situation of this island. In my opinion, Jinan is a hypocrite. Long said in a loud voice. He looked at the naval base in the distance that was much taller than all the buildings. This was his first impression of Jinan. Just when Long was about to list Jin An's crimes one by one, an angry voice exploded in Long's ears, leaving him a little at a loss. You are a bad person, how dare you say bad things about brother Jinan? The girl started to cry as she spoke, half of the people on our island were saved by brother Jinan. If you want to scold him, I will be the first one to disagree. Long was flustered by the sudden sobbing. He didn't know what he had done wrong. What did the girl think of Jinan? What happened on this island before? We are the abandoned people, the people abandoned by the king. The king was ready to leave us to fend for ourselves. He wanted to abandon us ordinary people and only protect the rich. It was because of brother Jinan's negotiation with the king that we have the life we have now. The girl told everything she knew. To pay for the heavenly gold, the king of this world raised funds through different methods. King Bikoli of the Salbi kingdom wants to divide the country into two halves to reduce the tribute of heavenly gold. One half will be protected by the state, and the other half will become a lawless place. At that time, Jinan did not have enough strength and status, so it could only use various methods to reach a tacit understanding with the king, leading to the current situation. Otherwise we will either starve to death or be killed by pirates. Long was dumbfounded after hearing this, then he didn't expect this to be the case. His pride made him take it for granted that Jinan was the one who allowed the king to bully the common people. As a result, the girl's words made him realize how stupid his preconceived ideas were. He was somewhat afraid to look at the faces of the people around him, for he was afraid that he would be ridiculed and criticized. Watching the dragon's changing expressions, Kuzan felt a little bit of joy in his heart. He didn't want his idol to be misunderstood, not even by the people from the headquarters. No. I have to go back again. After struggling, Long still chose to follow his heart. If he did something wrong, he had to admit it. This was the rule he had always followed. Chapter 35, Ken and number 039, T beat the old one, beat the young one. Jinan was a little surprised when he saw Long pushing the door open. The first time Jinan saw Long, he felt that this guy was an extremely arrogant person and it was impossible to change his character under normal circumstances. Being arrogant is a good thing, but it also has disadvantages. This kind of person trusts himself too much and has absolute confidence in what he does, so he easily ignores the advice of people around him. Just like establishing the self-defense force in the future, they could have developed quietly with the support of the Navy, but they rebelled in anger because they couldn't stand what the Navy did. I'm here to apologize to you. Long lowered his proud head. Oh. Jinan looked at Long with interest. It was rare to see him being so humble. I didn't expect that you've done so much for this island, and I had a bad opinion of you just by seeing some things. I reflect on it, I admit my mistakes, and I will not make judgments so easily in the future. Correcting mistakes as soon as they are realized is better than what many people do. Long is truly impeccable in these aspects. I think what you said before was right. I did ignore some of the king's actions. Jinan said. Long raised his head and looked at Jinan with some confusion. You know, the world government does not allow us, the Navy, to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. After all, they pay for the military expenses, so we still have to respect the rules a little bit. Besides, the king did all these just to vent his emotions. It doesn't have much impact on people, so I won't care. He is not a god who can manage everything. Even if he manages everything in an orderly manner, what will happen to the people here when he leaves? It is better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. Seeing that Long still couldn't understand, Jinan continued. The king can decide the rise and fall of a country. As far as I'm concerned, although the current king is narrow-minded, he still cares about the people. His existence is good for everyone. As long as he doesn't cross the red line, he can do whatever he wants. In a stable environment, people will just be content with the status quo, but with a little pressure, people with outstanding abilities will continue to emerge. The dragon seemed to understand something. Everything revolved around balance, so much so that all parties acquiesced to this state of affairs. No, I think balance is just the most convenient option. Long raised his head suddenly, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. He clenched his fists tightly. This is not the justice I believe in. To put it nicely, it is balance, to put it bluntly, it is compromise. The Navy has entrusted the entire South China Sea to you for protection. You should be pretty strong, right? A competitive look appeared on Long's face. I want to learn some of Colonel Jinan's skills and see if you are worthy of the reputation. Ha 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 ha, I just had a sparring match with Garp, and I just had enough fun. I accept your invitation. Hearing Long's request, Jinan laughed out loud. If I can't beat Garp, I can beat you. Jinan is still very confident in his own strength. The Salbei Kingdom Branch. Training Course. Come on, Long, you make the first move. Let me see what you are made of after being taught by Garp. Jinan spoke calmly, giving Long a chance to take the initiative. Long is definitely a genius, and a hard-working genius, otherwise he would not have reached the rank of colonel at such a young age. Geniuses also have another typical characteristic, which is that they like to be troublemakers. To deal with such people who like to find trouble, you need to subdue them first, so that they don't find things to do. Long was still too young at this time. He did not have the maturity and wisdom that he would have after leaving the Navy. Now he was just rushing forward based on his passion. In his opinion, Jinan was being too arrogant and didn't take him seriously at all. He had been fearless since he was a child, so how could he tolerate this? He wanted to make Jinan regret looking down on him. Long took a deep breath, then closed his eyes slightly, opened them after a moment, and regained his previous calmness. He looked at Jinan and said calmly, I will not hold back. This time I will have a good fight with you. Go ahead and do it with confidence. Jinan also showed a smile on his face and nodded slightly. As Jinan finished speaking, Long's expression became more serious. The wind swirled around him, wrapping him up and gradually spreading outwards. It is indeed an ability related to wind. Seeing the abilities that Long used, Jinan became interested, but he didn't expect that Long had already eaten the devil fruit. That's what makes it fun. As he spoke, Long suddenly took a step forward at a very fast speed. His hands bent into a strange arc, and when his 10 fingers were put together, they were like the claws of a giant dragon. Coupled with the increase in wind force, there was actually a sound of breaking wind. Dragon Claw Fist, Sabo's famous skill many years later, can even easily crush the hard armor of Blackbeard's men, so it is not surprising that Dragon uses it now. Long had obviously practiced this move for a long time, so when he made the move, it was difficult to figure out the trajectory of his movements when his arms were waving. Ever since he went out to sea to hunt pirates, Long understood one thing: he should never look down on anyone when fighting with them, so as soon as he made a move, he used his best moves. The power and momentum of the Dragon Claw fist can indeed be called perfect in the eyes of others. Facing Long's fierce attack, Jin An's expression did not change. He was still so nonchalant, he had no intention of taking the big move head-on. The only way to defeat martial arts in the world is to be faster. As long as he can't hit me, then no matter how powerful the skills are, they are just fancy moves. With a slight movement of his mind, Jinan took a step forward, leaving an afterimage on the spot, and his figure was already 10 meters away. Boom! The training ground was covered in dust. Long dug his claws into the soil, his expression slightly stunned. "Dragon boy, I'm behind you." Jinan's voice rang in Long's ears. When he turned around, he saw Jinan put his palms together, and instantly took a stance, waving his palms. A fierce palm wind swept over, blowing away all the nearby sand and dust. In a panic, Long immediately fought back with his Dragon Claw fist. Boom! The fierce attack collided directly the next moment, and violent waves spread out. The two men's attacks intertwined at a lightning speed, and the dull sound continued on the training ground. The sound of fighting inevitably attracted some people to come and check it out. Under the gaze of so many curious eyes, people were interweaving on the training ground, fighting back and forth, and the game was quite intense. Wow, the fight is so intense! Looking at the two figures fighting on the field, many people couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Is this guy so strong? As the Dragon Claw fist was swung, Long's expression changed again and again. He didn't expect that even though he was in an extremely serious state, he couldn't cause any injuries to Jinan. Moreover, when the two were attacking each other, he always felt that the other party was deliberately observing his moves, as if trying to understand his attack pattern. We can't continue to be in a stalemate. Chapter 36 Invitation Letter. Long's eyes focused, and then he covered his palms with domineering aura. He stepped quickly on the ground, and then turned into wind. The whole person shot out like a sharp sword and instantly approached Jinan's body. Then the corners of his mouth rose, and the next moment, he changed his way of attacking. He used his hands and feet at the same time and burst out with powerful force. The attack fell on Jinan like a storm. The sudden and fierce attack launched by Long had no effect on Jinan at all. It was as if those attacks did not exist and he allowed the attacks to fall on his body. Then he clenched his palm into a fist and threw an ordinary punch, hitting the dragon directly in the chest and blasting the dragon away. Long touched his chest, which was in severe pain, his face turned pale and he gasped, as expected, in front of a master, elementalization is useless. Then it turned into a green wind and blew towards Jinan. It's quite durable. Jinan shook his hands. He felt that every time his fist hit the dragon, it would inexplicably slide to the side, as if he was hitting flowing air. The feeling was extremely bad, and there was no pleasure of punching flesh. Clap clap clap! The fierce battle was still going on, with fists and palm prints from both sides appearing one after another. The clothes of both men had long been turned into fragments in the battle and blown away by the wind. Pfft! There was another collision. Long stepped back a few steps in the air and relied on the breeze to stop his body from retreating. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Jinan with a twinkling gaze. He tried his best, but the other party still stood there without moving at all. Okay, I've almost figured out your strength. Jinan said loudly, you can go off the court and rest. After saying that, Jinan didn't wait for Long to react. He jumped high into the air with a moon step and then fell down suddenly. Let me show you this palm technique that comes from the sky. The dragon felt a strong threat approaching him, so he decided to fight back with all his strength. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, blowing up sand, gravel, broken branches and other debris, which rushed into the sky. It's no use. Under Jinan's palm, the strong wind suddenly collapsed, and the branches and dust all shattered and scattered all over the ground. A slap landed on the dragon's head. You lost. Under the sunshine of that winter day, the training ground and its surroundings fell into silence. Everyone stared at the two people in the center of the training ground with joy in their eyes. All the bystanders had expected this outcome. Their Colonel Jinan had never been defeated by his peers. I actually lost. Long lay on the training ground with his palms in front of his eyes to block out the annoying sunlight. This was the first time he had failed since he was born, and it was a complete failure. This first time in his life really made him unhappy. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the side quest and defeating the Wind Driver. Ding! You have gained Monkey D. Dragon's recognition. Ding! Monkey D. Dragon's favorability towards you has increased. Please keep up the good work. Mission reward, training space usage time plus 36 hours, 2,000 million Baileys, information on the disappeared island, 1 invitation to the auction house. Jinan? When you stand on the field, joy will come from the sky. The training time continued to increase, which was enough for him to practice for a while. However, these Baileys were just better than nothing to him, and the money was just a string of numbers in his eyes. What really made him curious were the last 2 rewards. The disappeared island must be the one that someone had reported before. It was specifically used for rewards, which meant that the island must have some unknown secrets. As for the invitation letter, he needs to find a place where no one is around to study it carefully. Jinan glanced at Long. He didn't expect that a guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes like you would be so nice. It was useless to talk to him for a long time. After a beating, he became obedient. Jinan looked down at the dragon lying on the ground, still with that unfathomable smile on his face. He's really troublesome. He's worthy of being raised under the training of those old guys in the headquarters. Devil fruit is not something that ordinary people can get, and dragon's fruit is extremely rare. I am so envious. And thank you for the reward you brought me. Long laughed at himself, thinking that the reward Jinan mentioned was the joy after victory. What about our headquarters? What about the 4 seas? We still lost to you. Can I ask you, why are you so strong? Long moved the hand that was blocking his eyes away and developed a strong curiosity about the person who defeated him. If he lost, he lost. He just needed to improve himself and then catch up with him to get satisfaction. After hearing Long's words, Jinan also asked himself in his heart, was it luck, hard work, or the survival through desperate situations every time in the training space? He smiled and didn't answer directly. Powerful? I don't think so. There are too many powerful people in this world. Edward Newgate, Gold Roger, Golden Lion Shiki, the 5 elders, any one of these people could easily defeat him, and these people have always been his target. You should have a good rest from now on. Maybe I will have something fun to do for you later. Jinan turned around and walked towards the office. He still had a lot of training to complete. You just got here, it's normal that you don't know Jin An. Quzhan sighed, I've been with him for such a long time, and I haven't seen him exercise much, but every time I see him, I can feel that he has become stronger. Maybe this is a genius, oh no. A monster. When I first met him, I could still be 30% to 70% with him, but now, it's all tears. After hearing what Quzhan said, Long didn't feel better, but even more painful. Damn. An invitation to the human auction house. Holding the reward issued by the system, Jinan started cursing, saying that this thing was of no use to him. The auction house was in the Sabayati Islands, a great distance away. This thing was like waste paper, and he couldn't possibly buy a living person. On second thought, the Chabayote Islands are a resort, and it seems like it would be a nice place to go for a trip. But Quzhan's level is a bit difficult, that guy probably won't let him have his way. Quzhan, who was dealing with a mess at the training ground, sneezed, oh, I have such a hard time. No, I have to go even if there are no conditions. I have to create the conditions to go. Looking at the invitation letter, Jinan smiled evilly, I have to bring a few people with me. There is only one bustling event a month, so there will definitely be a lot of interesting things happening. Chapter 37 Auction. Next morning. The newsbird flew over every inhabited island, carrying newspapers. The family of Don Quixote homing Gushan, a celestial dragon, gave up their identities and became civilians. The world government hereby announces that whether this person lives or dies in the future has nothing to do with the government. Charlotte Linlin and Kaido teamed up in the New World to attack several islands, causing great suffering to the people. People rushed to escape. The newspaper will continue to pay attention. Edward Newgate accepted 4 sons, and the banquet on the ship lasted all night until the guests gradually dispersed at dawn. Nanhai Admiral Jinan left the kingdom of Salbi alone to continue clearing out pirates. Hero Garp returns to his hometown in the East China Sea, and the pirates along the way are terrified. In the magnificent hall, there was a rush of people and a loud noise. Under the dim lights of the auction house, people wore gorgeous clothes and various jewels, showing off their wealth. Sorry to have kept you waiting. A man in a black suit said passionately in his opening remarks, "The monthly number 1 GR human auction will begin soon. The wonderful host for us is of course the walking auction house Mr. Disco." Under the shining lights of the auction room, a man in gorgeous clothes walked slowly to the center of the auction table with exaggerated steps. His expression was so exaggerated that it looked like a dramatic work, and every line on his face was expressing the extreme emotions. "We have prepared a lot of high-quality slaves for you this time." Modice waved his hammer. "You are so lucky. We also have some super popular products this time. I sincerely hope that you can buy the slaves you are satisfied with." Directly behind the auction platform, slaves were held in groups of 3 or 5 in different cells, with expressions of despair deeply engraved on their faces. Their eyes were empty and powerless, and the chains and shackles on their bodies seemed to be their eternal bondage. They could not hide the fear and helplessness in their hearts. "Why did he bring us to this place?" Doflamingo felt uncomfortable after his disguise and twisted his body to take off his dirty clothes. "Stop struggling, you can't get out of this place." Long glanced at the child beside him and looked at the chains on his body. This was a new experience for him. He was always respected and he was the one who put chains on prisoners. Now it was his turn. He changed into a comfortable position and leaned against the wall. "We will know where he is in a moment, now just wait, this is something we have never been exposed to before. This is the darkness of this world. Everyone present has contributed to this tragedy in the world." That's right, Dragon and Doflamingo were sold by Jinan to the Sabayati archipelago. After saying this, Long closed his eyes and listened quietly to the crying coming from the cell next to him. In the center of the auction hall, the nobles sat on comfortable chairs, raised their glasses with elegant gestures, gently sipped the wine, and chatted while waiting for the items to be auctioned. "What do you want to buy this time?" "The human slave I bought last time died within 10 days, so if possible, I want to buy a young and strong fisherman man today. I want to buy 2 or 3 young and beautiful women to feast my eyes on. I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of women will appear. Ha 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 ha. For them. This is not only an auction, but also a sophisticated social event. They enjoy the excitement and joy brought by the auction." Looking at the increasingly heated atmosphere around him, Modice laughed with his head back. He was the chief auctioneer, and several years of hosting experience had made him realize how much wealth his talent could bring. He turned his eyes away from people's faces, laughed loudly, clapped his hands, and said with a smile, "Everyone, I also know the purpose of your visit, so in this auction, I will directly take out the things at the bottom of the box." As he spoke, Modice waved his hand, and the lights on the stage suddenly dimmed. Soon, under the spotlight, 2 guards came up, leading a man with a collar. Modice took the megaphone and began to introduce the product. "Product number 1 comes from Bahai. He can cook and do all the housework. He is handsome and attractive. He is loved by everyone and can meet all your needs. A 22-year-old man in the prime of life. Let's start bidding from 30 Baileys. Then please raise your placards and bid." Modice, who was smiling on the stage, asked for a high price for this person. "What a beast!" Jinan sat in the VIP seat and watched the farce with a cold smile on his lips. It is said that there would be no killing without buying and selling, but in Jinan's eyes, killing slaves directly was already a good ending. He was just afraid that the slaves would live a life worse than death after being bought. Looking at the male slave on the stage, the eyes of the people in the audience obviously did not change, and it was obvious that they were not interested in this man. Being stared at by everyone, the man twisted his body uncomfortably, his heart filled with despair. Once the deal was successful, his life and death would be completely in the hands of others. "Since no one wants it, this person belongs to me." The man holding the number 87 sign raised his sign above his head, 30 Baileys. After shouting out the price, the nobleman looked around to see if there were any people who would compete with him. Modice's eyes flashed, and he gave the bidder a low rating in his heart and smiled contemptuously, but he kept a perfect smile on his face. He shouted loudly, "Guest number 87 bids 30 Baileys, is there anyone who wants to follow suit?" After a brief silence, a few more people continued to raise the price. Listening to the ever-increasing price, the person who made the initial offer was amazed, but also a little annoyed. Finally, when the price rose to 52 Baileys, he no longer had the thought of competing. For the first product, most people did not buy it and chose to wait and see. They all understood that the quality of the products would get higher as time went by. Those with less Bailey also saw this opportunity and started to raise the prices of the goods in front, hoping to spend the least money to buy relatively good slaves. After all, by attending such a large auction, you might be able to meet some people of higher status. After the auction lasted 30 minutes, 14 slaves had been sold, and the next items were all heavyweight. Be prepared and bring out item number 16. Once item number 15 is sold successfully, bring it to the stage immediately. Kid, stand up quickly. Perform well next time and try to be sold for a good price. The guard grabbed Doflamingo by the clothes and threw him out of the cell. And you have your own feet, hurry up and get out, or I'll beat you to death if you don't move. Long suppressed his murderous urge. Got up and walked towards the auction table. Chapter 38, Dragon and Doflamingo take the stage. Amid the sound of chains rubbing against the floor, Dragon and Doflamingo were pushed onto the auction stage. A group of greedy and cold buyers are commenting on every aspect of their bodies, while they themselves stand on the stage like merchandise at the mercy of others. Doflamingo's uneasy mood, which had been in the prison since he was in prison, reached its peak when he stood on the stage. After seeing the eyes of the people around him, he felt a sense of helplessness and anger enveloping his heart. His heart was beating wildly as if it was about to jump out of his chest, and his throat was blocked by an unspeakable fear, making it almost impossible for him to breathe. He tried to stay calm, but the fear in his body surged like a tide, unstoppable. Long, on the other hand, had a blank expression on his face as always, as if he was not a commodity standing on the stage, but a king inspecting his territory. The collar on his neck is easy for him to remove, so his mentality is very different from Doflamingo. If he wants to leave, no one here can stop him. A warm atmosphere permeated the auction house, an atmosphere intertwined with money, power, and greed. Doflamingo's eyes swept over the buyers' faces, only to see that their expressions were cold, but their eyes were flickering with desire for the young slaves. Some of them had smiles on their faces, as if they were looking at a valuable work of art, while others had sharp eyes, staring at them like hungry wolves. He was scared. The looks from these people made him feel physically uncomfortable. He was a little doubtful. Did he look at ordinary people in the same way before? Next is item number 16. This is a strong young man from the South China Sea. He can easily move an entire warehouse's worth of goods without showing any signs of fatigue. He can work like a cow or a horse, and he can also be used as a sandbag. And he comes with a handsome boy. Ha 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 ha. The people in the auction room burst into laughter. So, what's the starting price? Modais observed the expressions of the people present. He slammed the hammer down on the table. Starting price, 3,000 million Baileys, bidding begins now. When they were announced to be sold by the auctioneer, a commotion immediately broke out among the crowd. Some people were talking about it, some were discussing with people around them about how to bid later, and some people remained silent, but the greed in their eyes could not be concealed. Doflamingo felt more and more like a piece of merchandise, displayed in a window for everyone to admire and bid on. Damn it, I'm only worth 3,000 million Baileys. You look down on me like that. Long felt insulted when he heard their starting price. No, Long looked at the trembling kid next to him and realized that he was not even worth 3,000 million Baileys. A breeze blew in the hall, but it soon returned to calm after Long calmed down. Jinan, who was sitting in the auction seat, looked at the two people on the auction table with interest, and the sound of bidding continued to ring out beside him. This guy Long is very popular among noble ladies. There was no way. Almost all the people bidding around were women. It seemed that his disguise was quite popular among these people. 4,500 million. 4,501. The auction process seemed like a horrible dream. And Doflamingo fell into an inescapable despair. He had never longed for freedom and to break free from his shackles so much, but in this cold and ruthless auction house, he could only watch helplessly as he was stripped away and sold off bit by bit, until he finally fell into the hands of a stranger and his fate was once again controlled by others. 5,000 million. The sounds of bidding rose one after another in the meeting hall. Jinan twitched his lips. 5,000 million was not a small amount. After all, it was he who asked the two to be auctioned, so the best solution would be for him to pay for it. Modais shouted, 5,100 million, 5,100 million, is there a higher offer than this? Jinan saw that it was almost done, and slowly raised the sign in his hand, 5,101 million. The corner of his eye twitched, and Modais glanced at Jinan through his sunglasses. He looked around and found that the bidders all had troubled expressions. He also knew that this price was the highest. So the price was repeated 3 times, and finally the dust settled. Congratulations to VIP number 888 for successfully buying the product that suits your needs. When Doflamingo saw that the person who took the photo of him was Jinan, he let out a deep breath, and his heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally settled down. He didn't want to suffer this kind of torture anymore. Long glanced at Jinan, feeling a little depressed. In the end, he, a colonel of the Navy headquarters and a little kid, only sold them for 5,001 million. Dragon and Doflamingo were taken away, waiting to be delivered after the auction or for the buyer to pick them up in person. And now, the auction is still going on. The prices these people shouted out became more and more outrageous, and Jinan became more and more excited. In fact, Jinan didn't want to pay for it, so it would be more cost-effective to just grab it. However, if he wanted to grab it, he would have to wait until the auction was over, when there would be fewer people and it would be easier to get it. Anyway, he couldn't stand the fact that these auction houses treated living people as commodities. The human traffickers deserved to die, and so did the people who ran the auction houses. If he had the capital to compete with the world government, he would have demolished this place right now. Alas, it seems that I will return empty-handed again this time. Is the mermaid I'm most looking forward to still not here? I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Not to mention mermaids, even murlocs are rare. You have to rely on luck to see one. The real VIPs at the auction house, although full of desire for slave commodities, are not satisfied with the current commodities because they desire slaves of higher quality, preferably of some special races. The commodities before were rather monotonous, consisting of only strong slaves for hard labor, or slaves with special skills, such as being good at cooking or proficient in music. But the products that can make their eyes shine have not yet appeared. However, despite the guests' dissatisfaction with the current slave commodity, they are still looking forward to the next one. They expected that in the next auction, a more ideal slave would appear who could meet their needs and desires. Therefore, they chose to stay in the auction house, waiting for the next item to appear, hoping to find a slave that suits their taste. For them, slaves are not only labor, but also a symbol of identity and status, which can bring endless comfort and enjoyment. It's so ugly. Jinan sat in the auction hall and always felt that he was out of place here. Jinan's eyes wandered over everyone in the auction hall, including kings, nobles, wealthy people, and even a celestial dragon in a separate area. The celestial dragons are extremely wealthy. Robbing one of them would probably be worth the wealth of all the people here combined. Chapter 39, Making a Scene at the Auction House. The shackles on Long and Doflamingo's necks have been opened, and they are quietly staying beside Jinan. Jinan asked the auctioneer to come in advance, otherwise they would have to continue suffering in the cell. How do you two feel? Jinan took a sip of coke leisurely. Doflamingo was a little afraid to look at Jinan, but the hatred that kept rising in his heart filled his heart. His hatred for the world and his dissatisfaction with Jinan wanted to turn into a raging fire and destroy everything. He was the noble Don Quixote, and had never suffered such an insult. However, he did not dare to show his dissatisfaction with Jinan. He knew well that the other party would not care about his identity. If he wanted to kill him, a former Tianlong man, he could do it with just a flick of his finger. Jinan naturally also felt Doflamingo's hatred, but he didn't care. Would an elephant care about an ant? To him, Doflamingo was not much stronger than an ant. These human traffickers deserve to die. Long said in a deep voice. The things that he couldn't stand were happening right in front of him, and he had completely lost his patience with these scumbags. You only see the human traffickers, but don't think about who is behind them and supporting them. Those people are no worse than the human traffickers. Jinan said lightly. Long's pupils shrank slightly. You mean? There is a naval base on this island. Do you really think they don't know anything? Jinan shook the coke in the goblet and looked through the goblet at the sky that was blocked by the auction house. Long's life before this could be described as smooth sailing. Before coming here, he had no idea about things like slave auctions, not to mention the dirty dealings between the Navy and the auction house. When he suddenly heard these things, it had a severe impact on his heart. Time seemed to have stopped for Long. He stood there at a loss, unable to utter a word. He was completely stunned. What happened today was completely different from the justice that Garp had always taught him. What's the big deal? Doflamingo said, breaking the strange atmosphere. These things are all carried out with the secret support of the world government. The Navy can only choose to pretend not to see it. I just saw an unexpected person. Look, that person was sitting openly in the area reserved for the celestial dragons. Didn't you see him? The dragon rolled its throat and swallowed hard, and the celestial dragons also joined in. Let's go. The auction will not end for a while yet. I'll take you to make a big profit. Jinan drank the coke in the cup in one gulp. He had wanted to do this for a long time, and now the timing was just right. Not far from them, some nobles had already begun to collect their trophies with smiles on their faces. These trophies not only gave them slaves to control at will, but also represented that their financial resources were at the top level in the auction house. Dragon and Doflamingo looked at the place where Jinan's eyes fell at the same time. What he was talking about were these slaves. What's the point of some slaves? Doflamingo curled his lips. Not just the slaves, everything here belongs to me. Jinan made a hugging gesture. According to his observation haki, the auction house's underground warehouse was filled with gold, silver, jewelry, calligraphy, and paintings. With his strength, he can be said to be able to kill gods and Buddhas in the Sabayati archipelago. Nothing can threaten him, so why not just go for it? Moreover, his observation haki is enough to cover the entire Sabayati archipelago, and he can escape instantly if any unexpected situation occurs. The auctioneer on the stage was still chattering on and on about the items that were about to be auctioned with an exaggerated expression. There was no emotion in his eyes behind his sunglasses, only the desire for money. These desires drive him to perform hilarious performances, regardless of the slave's desperation. Long felt the flames of his anger igniting again, his hands clenched into fists, his knuckles bulged, veins popped, and his anger towards the auctioneer and his dissatisfaction with the auction house reached its peak. Suddenly, Jinan shouted loudly, and his voice echoed throughout the hall. You can end your exaggerated performance now. Jinan said calmly, you can leave here if you have nothing to do. I am in a good mood today, so I only attacked the auction house. If I accidentally hurt you, I can only say sorry. His words made everyone in the hall stop talking and cast surprised and angry looks at him. They were very angry that their interest was suddenly interrupted. Sir, please sit down. We can still treat your previous offensive behavior as a joke. If you still don't know what's good for you, don't blame us for being cruel. The auction house employee said with a fake smile on his face. Jinan slapped the man in front of him away and looked at the people in the auction hall. Okay, okay. I find that you really suit my taste now. Doflamingo's mouth was almost grinning to his ears. Revenge is not delayed overnight, and he was looking forward to the development of next events. There was a commotion in the auction hall. Some were surprised, some were disdainful, but everyone was dissatisfied with his behavior. But Jinan remained unmoved and quietly watched the clownish behavior of the people in front of him. I'll only count to 3, if you don't leave, you will suffer the consequences. 3. Ha ha ha, you really think you are an important person? I'm the king of the Rasal kingdom. Do you think you are worthy of threatening me? 2. Stop counting down. There's no way we're leaving here. Aren't you people ashamed of your actions? Is it that all you care about is fame, fortune, and money? Have you lost even the most basic humanity and conscience? Seeing that no one left, Long couldn't help but said loudly. His voice was filled with grief and indignation, trying to awaken the conscience of these people. But he was disappointed. Most people in the auction hall didn't care about Long's words. No matter how much humanity was worth, since they were sitting here, it meant that those things had long been abandoned. Power and status are their symbols. Ha ha ha, isn't this the little brat who was just bought? It seems your master doesn't think highly of you. How about I discipline you on behalf of your master? You are a slave and you are still pretending. I can kill you with just a spit. You dare to bark in front of me. You must be tired of living. The auction hall was filled with insults, and these people were very dissatisfied with Long's behavior. It's so sad. Long closed his eyes gently, not knowing whether he was talking about the people in front of him, this damn world, or the world government that is high above. Soon they couldn't curse anymore. Jinan and the others appeared in front of the human traffickers in an instant. The man also saw what Jinan meant, and quickly stretched out his hand to block it, calling out to the others, brothers, since he is shameless, beat him to death. Do it. The thugs in charge of security surrounded them instantly. These people were all veterans of the auction house. They ran over with sticks in hand. For them, there was no doubt that at least 50 of these troublemakers would be beaten to death. Their every move reveals their pursuit of money and they do not care about human life at all. In their eyes, troublemakers are walking money. They can catch the troublemakers and auction them directly here, and the money they get will naturally go into their pockets. Long felt the greed in these people's eyes, and a hint of disgust flashed in his eyes. Let's go together. He rushed towards the crowd with firm steps. He had no mercy on these people and wanted only to vent his anger that had accumulated over this period of time on them. Chapter 40 Freeing the Slaves. The noble's sneers and disdain made his fists clench even tighter, and anger burned in the dragon's chest. He knew the filthiness of this place and the tragic fate of those innocent people. The slaves who sacrificed their lives here were not willing, but they would still be deprived of all dignity and even their lives. They were not born to be enslaved by you. Long's voice was full of anger and determination, and his words pierced the hearts of the slaves backstage like a sharp sword. They only dared to think about speaking for slaves in their dreams, so many of them burst into tears after hearing Long's words. Why are you crying? You don't think they can really take you out, do you? Stop dreaming, the guard laughed. The slaves did not hold out much hope and simply vented their pent-up emotions. Although they had no hope, their eyes still revealed their anger at their experiences, as well as their faith and admiration for Jinan and his people. When the nobles began to taunt and provoke, Doflamingo's expression became even gloomier, his hands clenched into fists, his body tensed, ready to deal with any possible challenge, while his eyes flashed with a fiery light, as if he wanted to grind those nobles to ashes. I'm just reminding you kindly. Since you all don't want to leave, I won't care about you anymore. Jinan's hair and clothes moved without wind, and although the sound was not loud, it was clearly heard by everyone. The expressions of some nobles changed. They seemed unable to afford to offend someone who could do such a thing, and they immediately began to think of retreating. But suddenly, a roar sounded, and Modus led his men forward, breaking the silence of the auction hall. He had long been unable to tolerate these three troublemakers who were destroying his money-making plans. Now that he had all the people he needed, he no longer had to endure it. They were fully armed, and their weapons were configured to be most lethal. Their movements were agile and powerful, and they rushed forward screaming and holding knives and guns. Boom! Continuous gunshots rang out, and several of Modai's men attacked Jinan and his men without hesitation. The anger burning in Long's heart was ignited by the gunshots, and he was determined to let everyone here know that the evil act of participating in the slave trade would be punished. The people in the auction house could suppress ordinary slaves, but they were no match for Jinan and his men. For a while, wailing sounds continued to be heard. In the blink of an eye, the group of people who were so aggressive just now all fell to the ground without a sound. Modais was forced to retreat again and again, cold sweat kept dripping from his forehead, and he became more and more anxious. This bunch of useless marines. I give them so much money every year. And now they can't even protect my safety. Boss, I've already told them, but they said it'll take some time to get here. The subordinate was sweating anxiously. He hadn't spent all the money he earned yet, and he couldn't die here. Useless, all useless. They fail when the time comes. He gritted his teeth and watched his interests quickly slip away amid the wanton destruction by Jinan and his men. Although his men continued to join in the suppression, they were still completely unable to contain the momentum of the riot. The scene was already filled with the screams and curses of the nobles. They panicked and pushed each other as they ran towards the exit. Those three men were so terrifying that so many people were killed in an instant. They did not even let go of the human traffickers who knelt down and begged for mercy. They killed them without mercy. Boom! A burst of gunfire rang out among the panicked crowd. Humble untouchables, please move aside and clear the way. The noble celestial dragons are leaving here. The guards who were protecting the safety of the celestial dragons shouted loudly. They were extremely panicked as they originally thought it was just a simple guard mission. They didn't expect to encounter such a thing. They can't let anything happen to the Tianlong people, otherwise, they and their families will die miserably. Why should we leave here? Wouldn't it be more interesting to continue watching them kill each other? The celestial dragons were very interested in the killing of humans and did not want to leave here. Saint Lasgard, let's go back to Marijoa to watch these things. The performances here are boring. The captain of the guards exhaled and suppressed the urge to just run away with the celestial dragon in his arms. They have always stayed with the celestial dragons and knew their thoughts clearly. They were fearless and had no worries about encountering danger, because when they were threatened, the Navy's top combat forces would rush directly here. This is one of the reasons why these celestial dragons have the confidence. The celestial dragons are not afraid, but the guards are. No one knows what those people will do when they become bloodthirsty. Are you teaching me how to do things? The Tianlong man took out his gun and looked at the guard. CP2, who was hiding in the dark, appeared in front of the guards. With us here, no one can get close to here. You guys should set up a protection circle around St. Lasgard. Be careful not to let anyone get close to us. Make sure they don't spread the virus here. Although they are confident in their own abilities, they still choose to take out an extra insurance policy to ensure that nothing goes wrong. After all, the scene here is too chaotic, and if anything unexpected happens, no one can save him. Jinan, who was not far away, naturally watched every move of the Tianlong people. They were indeed pigs, rushing forward when they saw dangerous things. I'll leave the small shrimps here to you. Jinan slapped the person who approached him and walked to the backstage alone. Really? Let us do this hard work again. After Doflamingo shot and hit the enemy, the corners of his mouth raised. Although he was complaining, he liked this feeling of being invincible. In the chaos and fierce fighting, Long's heart was filled with anger, and he just nodded silently after hearing Jinan's words. He has a belief in justice and a desire to protect the weak. His actions are not only to rescue the enslaved people, but also to defend his inner beliefs and expectations for the world. Jinan went to the backstage alone. In the chaotic auction hall, he walked through the crowd openly. Although the guards tried their best to stop him, it had no effect on Jinan. It didn't take long for him to reach the backstage area. With a bang, Jinan pushed open the tightly closed cell. The room was dark and damp, and there was an unpleasant smell in the air. He frowned somewhat uncomfortably. This environment is too bad. He shook his head and continued walking forward. Here he discovered a group of imprisoned slaves. Those people were full of surprise. Although they tried their best to calm their violently beating hearts, they could not hide the excitement on their faces. They recognized the voice of the person in front of them. You are free. Jinan kicked open the tightly closed prison door. Remember to line up. I will remove the collars from your necks for you. Everyone in the cell watched this scene in disbelief. It was not until Jinan went to the next cell that some people began to cry as if they had just woken up from a dream. It all seemed so real that they could not believe it. We are free. After cheering, the slaves rushed to the outside of the cell and lined up. Although they were out of the cell, the collars around their necks were the real threat to their lives. Walking into the last room, there were still slaves imprisoned inside, but one of them caught Jinan's attention. End of the chapter. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.